Welcome back. Thank you guys for being here. We're into our Scientology Casualty series here, episode 2, and it is part 2 of our interview with the fabulous Danielle Chamberlain, and who's, waiting backstage. But I have to say, if you guys did not see episode 1, it's there. It's on the channel. Please tune in, check it out. We talked for a couple hours. We still didn't get through everything. So, her story is incredible. Just to give you a bit of a recap, she was thrust into it at a very young age after her mom was duped into joining by her dad, who was a government spy who was infiltrating Scientology. And then whoopsie-doodles, she became a true believer, her mom did, and ended up at, England, where she got recruited to go to, of course, be with Lafayette Ronald on the official, former cattle transport ship, the Apollo, where she was doing literal dirty work. Thought, fuck this noise, I'm out. And, rebelled, ended up on the concentration camp, the original one. And we kind of left the story, just to give you guys a quick recap, kind of what's happening next after, she went back and she went to school. And we're going to pick it up from there. And once again, if you guys have questions or comments for me or for Danielle, please write question or comment before that so that I can see it at the end here. And without further ado, let me bring back our fabulous guest here, Danielle. Thank you for being back. Thank you for coming back. Appreciate you. And did I recap everything correctly? Did I leave things out?
Yeah, frozen again.
Frozen. Well, I can see you. Let's see what everybody. Go ahead. Did you hear what I said though earlier?
I heard a little bit of what you said. Yeah.
Okay. Did I leave anything out of the recap?
I don't think so. Just that we're gonna start where we left off.
Yes, basically. All right. Well, I'll let you guide us. So where are we at here in this fabulous story?
I've come back to St. Hill and I've started back at school again, which I'm quite enjoying because it's a non-Scientology school. Greenfields hadn't been set up quite yet when I got back, which is the Scientology school in near East Grinstead. Then I was doing work at what's called the Advanced Org St. Hill, and things like reception work and stuffing parties where we get all the CF files out and send promo to everybody, every man and his dog across the world.
And then, and CF for everybody out there is the central files. This is the database that they keep forever. If you ever walk into any organization, front group, anything, an open house, a class, whatever that is sponsored somehow by one of these organizations, they take your information and they will follow you till the end of time.
Unless you get declared suppressive person.
Then that's the one way to get off the list, kids. But they never throw your info out. You are put in a different category in that file cabinet as what they call dead filed, but they don't throw you away. They don't shred your info. They keep it. They keep track of you forever, even after they're not sending you stuff.
Well, Neville and another guy, you will have heard his name, Otto Roos.
Oh,
they were quite rebellious, and there was an amnesty where everybody was allowed to get rid of some knowledge reports in their file up until a certain date. All of their files, ethics files, and took a wheelbarrow down to a fire and burnt them all.
Wow. I'm going to try an experiment while you're talking, Danielle. Unless I'm asking a question, I'm just going to have you on the screen to see if that lessens the audio problems. Right. So you go for it.
Okay. So, I'm back at St. Hill and working at the Advanced St. Hill Org. I'm quite enjoying that, quite enjoying school, and but not being able to do any homework in the evenings or anything because that we had to work. Then when I was about 18, I was recruited to work for the Assistant Guardian UK as a sort of secretary PA, just doing typing and that sort of thing. I hope you can still hear me because it's
I can
frozen
absolutely
again.
hear you. And can you hear me?
Nora, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, the whole time. But you can't hear me when I'm talking there, which is weird because my mic is still on. So
yeah, it's strange. I've got full internet and everything. I'm not quite sure why it's doing it.
I don't know either. Let me make. I'm going to make
strange.
myself small.
Anyway,
and I'm going to make you bigger.
I've frozen again.
But you're not frozen to me.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll just keep talking every time it freezes. I'll just keep talking.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. All right. So I'm now working for the Guardian's office and doing sort of PA work, but I'm about to start my A level. So I must have been 17 going on 18. And Jane Kember ordered somebody called John Chatter to come and take me out of school, and they were not allowing me to do my exams because, that's not keeping Scientology working.
Right.
Forget your education. It's not important. Working for Scientology is the most important thing on the planet. In the sea.
Of course.
So I'm not best pleased about this, of course, but ended up moving because they then purchased a building in a place called Rottingdean near Brighton in West Sussex. And it was a big, old, huge, airy red brick building that had been a nunnery. So there was a graveyard on site full of nuns' graves.
Wow.
And only the graveyard still belonged to the nuns. So every time a nun carved it, then they would come and have their funeral.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that even though we still, Scientology owned the building, and that was just an aside. And then they tried keeping chickens for a while, and that didn't work very well. Excuse me. But Follow UK, the Flag Office Liaison Office moved there as well as the Assistant Guardian UK. And then it was decided that I would be a good candidate to go to do the Org Executive course and the Flag Executive Briefing course at Clearwater in Florida.
Of course.
Now, having come from a background of eating lots and lots and lots of beans and rice because, there was never any money.
Sure.
When I got to Clearwater, being a student was actually quite liberating, despite having to be on course every day. But I made a big mistake. The first thing I did when I got there after my flight was think, oh, wow, there's a swimming pool. I'm going to have a swim. And I made the mistake of seeing my supervisor to be walking, who was an old family friend. And I waved at him and he yanked me out of the pool. Get back on, you've got to go onto course now. And then he just arrived.
I didn't even, I'll be honest with you, when I was training there, I didn't even know there was a pool. They didn't even let us go anywhere near that. Like,
oh, really?
Oh no, I never saw the pool in my whole life.
Oh, wow.
It's all because of you, Danielle, because you jumped in that one time as a trainee. The rest of us never saw the pool. No, I'm just kidding. It was mostly we weren't training in the Fort Harrison anyway. It had been converted fully into a hotel at that point. So we were training in other buildings. Mostly. There was a couple times that we were there, but yeah, mostly we weren't there.
When I first started the course, and I don't know if we might have had to do some basics before we started the OEC, FEBC. There might have been some orientation courses or something. We were in the bank building.
Yeah. That's where we ate. They converted that to the like mess, basically the dining hall. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And we slept in the most god-awful motel that was attached next to a garage. I think you call it a gas station, right? We call it petrol garage. Yeah, it was awful. I mean, your feet stuck to the carpets, and it was shag pile carpeting.
Of course.
Oh, it was horrendous. Oh,
yeah.
Anyway, that was not too far a walk. We didn't have minibuses everywhere in those days. You could actually use your body and walk. And there were diners around there that you could have breakfast, and there were secondhand shops that you could buy clothes. And there was the lovely old grey moss building opposite, which was had I think it probably Victorian or maybe pre-Victorian building with very rickety old. It was sort of a kind of old. It looks like a haunted hotel, that kind of thing.
So I just want to clarify here just to make sure I'm understanding. So not only were you on the actual original ship with Lafayette Ronald, you were also on at the Flag Land Base in Clearwater during its inception. During, like, they had just purchased that building, essentially, that area.
They hadn't had it that long. I'd had it. I don't know what year. Do you know what year they purchased it? Because I
72 or 73.
I arrived there in 1980.
Okay, so they had just. So you're in the you were in the OG fake space Navy on the Apollo with Lafayette Ronald, and then on to the land base that they had just purchased, because they purchased the land base there around the same time that they purchased the chateau in California. In Hollywood for the celebrities, right? So yeah, there you go. You're in both these places. 1975. There you go. It was the year before I was born. They purchased.
Okay, so it was 5 years old by the time I got there. Yeah. I think there Mark. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So 1980, I arrived.
And how old are you here?
19.
Okay, so at 19, they're sending you off. And now these courses that Danielle's going to do here, it's got a lot of acronyms. Scientology is filled with acronyms, but essentially she's doing all of the administrative gobbledygook that Lafayette Ronald has barfed out into what's called the green on white policies. These are the administrative policies and orders that have to do with the running of the front groups and the different organizations. This is how you become an executive. You have to do, it's like basically the equivalent of somebody becoming a counselor, but studying everything that Lafayette Ronald wrote and said about counseling, which is contained in what's called the St. Hill Special Briefing Course, where he was there lecturing and writing for many years. And then later on the Apollo, he developed the higher levels of auditor, class 8 and above, for the super special, voodoo, Thetan particles that he was, discovering. But these courses, only certain people get asked to go to, Clearwater, Florida, to train on all of these things. You have to be very responsible and chosen. It's a big deal. It's not like, you're just some dude from the basement that they're like, okay, you can study, have a good time. Go ahead. I'm frozen for Danielle. You're not frozen, Danielle.
No, okay. I just when you're talking, I don't know if you're going to ask me a question because I can't hear you when that's going on. So
yeah, I'm gonna pull up our chat here. There's a chat between you and me, and so I'll pull that up now, and then I'll let you know I can see you and hear you.
Okay.
All right. You can see that, okay?
Yeah, I can now. I'll put my glasses on.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I can see everybody else's chat.
There you go. All right. Well, you're good.
Have you got special chat somewhere else?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, so I'll keep talking then.
Yes.
If we're talking about the FEBC. So
yes.
One thing I enjoyed about it was the people were fabulous. I really enjoyed the students. I enjoyed I didn't enjoy the studying because it was pretty intense, and those tapes are just monotonous and send you to sleep. And of course, if you fall asleep, you've got misunderstood words in Scientology and you've got to go back and do it all again. It's a bloody nightmare, and it's so boring. Anyway, hated it, hated that aspect of it, but loved the kind of more social aspect of it, the people and the environment. After course at night, we could go up to the roof and sit and smoke cigarettes and look at the sun going down or whatever it was. And or we go to the lemon tree and have yogurts and coffee and stuff like that. And the food was so much better than it was in England. I don't know what the guys at Flag actually felt about the food they were getting, but compared to what we'd had in England, it was, I'd never had cornbread, for example, and that's the first time I had cornbread. I'd never had and they made cornbread in huge trays. There was tons of it, and we'd never had. What's the other thing they had? Cinnamon toast. I'd never had cinnamon toast.
Oh, the French toast that they make for the breakfast.
Cinnamon toast, but cinnamon and butter on toast.
Yeah.
And sugar, I think.
That's just a treat that we make here. It's like, a poor man's French toast. When you don't have actual French toast, you just do that.
I thought French toast was with egg.
It is. But if you want that flavor, sometimes I'll just do that on a tortilla, and I call that like a home churro.
Yeah. And also the other lovely thing was that in Florida, they got wonderful oranges. So we had really, really nice orange juice.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then after a year of doing the course, I was sent back to be LRH Com at FOLO UK. And,
so just real quick, I'm going to pause you. So that job, guys, means that if Lafayette Ronald had communications that needed to get directly to that organization, or if people were trying to communicate to Lafayette Ronald that had to go through Danielle, right? And the FOLO, again, another acronym, is just basically a middle management pass through in different continental areas. It's like a tiny little form of management just for administrative stuff. They don't do any technical anything. It's just like making sure all the reports are there, making sure that all of the things that Lafayette Ronald is saying are being enforced, that kind of a thing. But her job is in a very specific division, and you have to be, again, super duper qualified to be a communicator with Lafayette Ronald, because he only wants to talk to certain people. Go ahead.
I just thought that was a bit crazy given my background with him before,
Right? Yeah.
Anyway, initially, that was not before having left Flag initially to come to the UK. And then as soon as I got to the UK, there was a telex from the Commodore's Messenger Org saying I have to turn around, come back to Florida to to join the Commodore's Messenger Org again. So I was flown straight back again. And of course, the authorities, they give you a short story. There's no way they were going to believe my story, and they wouldn't let me into the country. So they escorted me back onto a plane and sent me back to England again.
Right.
So that didn't work. So that then they sent me back to the UK to become LRH Com. And initially it worked quite well, and things were going well. And then this was around the time that the Commodore's Messenger Org was getting rid of all the executives, and they were, coming in quite heavy. And they sent a huge mission to the UK to start implementing all these rules and regulations. And this is when they started taking away television, newspapers,
right,
just at this point. And
coincidentally right after Operation Snow White went down. They don't want anybody to have access to the news. They don't want you to know because it was international news. It wasn't just like here in Los Angeles. Like, it was everywhere, because we had 12 people go to jail who were arrested, including Mary Sue. And if you had worked in that division in the Guardian's office, with under Mary Sue's direction, and if you'd been on the ship with her, as you had been, you're certainly going to be like, I'm sorry, where is Mary Sue? What happened?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Also, I forgot to say, and this is really important, just before I went to Flag the first time, my mother, who was 42, had a stroke.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so she had been working till 3 a.m. every day for 3 weeks in a row and getting very, very little sleep. She'd also gone through a divorce at the same time, so that piled with no sleep and everything. Anyway, she had this stroke. My 8-year-old brother found her at Stolin's in the room.
Oh, my God.
He ran and got someone, and then she was admitted to hospital. The problem was that 2 people from St. Hill were sent to the hospital before she had any medical intervention. And one thing about strokes is you have to get treatment ASAP.
Immediately.
She didn't get that treatment.
Oh, my God.
She didn't get that treatment. They took her out of hospital. They're not even family, right? So I had no say in what happened to my mother. Being the eldest child, I had no say. And I said, I tried to argue that she had to be in hospital. No, Scientology were going to heal her. So they took her out. She was put in a bed at Stonelands. She could not move. She was paralyzed, completely paralyzed down the left side. She
Oh
couldn't
my
sleep.
God.
She couldn't, her bodily functions, she couldn't do anything for herself. So my teenage younger sister was nursing her. And this is, my sister was somebody who was babysitting the kids at night when all the parents went to St. Hill in this big old house. And one day there was a fire in the house, and my sister rescued children from smoke-filled rooms before the fire brigade got there. And nobody perished, but the fire brigade had to come and put the fire out.
Well, yeah.
This is the kind of environment that we were living in. And my mother was lying in this room with my sister nursing her. My sister then said, this isn't okay. There was another lady, a lovely lady who'd been a nurse, and she also saw my mother, and they agreed between them that they had to get the general practitioner, the GP, to come and see her. And he immediately put her back in hospital again.
Of course.
But from that moment on, she was on her own. There was no Aftermath Foundation to help her, you know?
No. But how long had she, like, so she went to hospital and they took her out before, like, what, 24 hours before she was?
Oh, God. Yeah, really quickly. As soon as she'd been admitted. How long was
she back, like, with your sister taking care of her?
Probably about 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh, my God.
Uh-huh.
So what happened to your mom as a result of this neglect and severe, like, if this were a doctor who had done this, this would be a malpractice suit. But, like, what happened to your mom?
She was paralyzed down her left side for the rest of her life. Her bones in her elbow were detached. So when she moved her hand, it was crunching because there was bone on bone. It was horrible. And then she ended up, she managed to work for a little bit because she'd been a journalist in her life before, and she'd been editor of the Auditor magazine at St. Hill. And she managed to work for a local newspaper in East Grinstead for a little while, but not for long. And she also managed to stand for Parliament as a Liberal parliamentarian. But she then just went downhill from there. She had a fall and then something broke, and she was not able to function. Her left side she wasn't able to use her left side at all.
Oh my God. And of course they just disavowed her at that point. They were like, we don't know you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now by this time, this was around the time that all the execs were being kicked out. My brother-in-law had been the CEO at St. Hill. He was kicked out. My sister was kicked out. And he was declared. So then I was declared PTS, potential trouble source, but not before I'd been removed from my post as LRH Com. And one of the things, apart from being connected to this brother-in-law, was that there was a committee of evidence on someone who they were absolutely determined had to be found guilty, despite a committee of evidence. So the committee of evidence, it's just a sham. And I was saying, no, per LRH policy, as I'd been trained, he has to.
Did you try to use policy in a procedure in Scientology? Did you try to use Lafayette Danielle, are you trying to practice Scientology inside of Scientology? What are you thinking? Like, guys, this is what I really want you to pay attention to this story here. I'm going to stop interrupting her in a second, because this is what Valerie Haney is going through right now with this ridiculous arbitration. Okay, because all of those things, whatever justice you're getting in Scientology, whatever, is already predetermined. They already know you are guilty of XYZ. They do the hearing as a formality, as what we used to like to call in Scientology an admin exercise, okay? Which means that you're literally just filing the paperwork, okay? This would be like if you were picked up on the street by police and they said, you murdered Joe Jones. And you're like, I don't even know who Joe Jones is. And they're like, nope, you're the guy, you murdered him. And they just take you to a courtroom where a jury and the judge have already deliberated based on evidence that they found that you haven't even seen. You don't even have a lawyer. And they're like, okay, guilty. And you're like, wait a minute, where's my trial? That's a Scientology committee of evidence. Okay. Like it's already predetermined. No matter what you say or bring in as evidence, it's already refuted. It's already refuted. Okay, carry on.
No, that's true. The other thing I want to mention, I completely forgot, and I did, and this is quite sensitive, but it's important that the story is told. When I was 18, an American guy pursued me. He was working for the Guardian's office, and he asked me to marry him. Now, in Scientology, in the Sea Org, it's quite an attractive proposition because you're going to get your own room, your own space, this kind of stuff. And he pursued me quite hard, so I said yes. And this was just before I was sent to Flag for my training. So I was away. Now, this is personal, but
who was that guy?
Who was he?
Yeah,
I'll tell you privately. I'll tell you.
Yeah, it wasn't my dad, anyways. Was it? No, I'm just kidding.
What was your dad's name?
Sova.
No.
She's like, wait a minute, I'm hesitating. No, I'm just kidding.
And so I couldn't have intercourse with this guy.
Right, of course. That's the rules.
Yeah, no. We were married.
Oh.
But I couldn't physically, mentally do it. I couldn't.
That's
okay. Yeah. Now, given my background of having been SA'd when I was 14.
Yeah.
And SA'd when I was with my stepbrothers in South Africa.
Yeah.
And the trauma of having been locked up on the ship, and the trauma of boarding school, my parents' divorce, and layers of trauma, I wasn't at a point where I could relax enough to do this.
Of course
so
not.
He got very frustrated, sent me to see a doctor who examined me. And no word of a lie, this doctor was old school with a monocle. He had a monocle and he had a bow tie. And he examined me and said, oh, my dear, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you that a good stiff red wine wouldn't help out with, So he was, yeah. Well, like I'm going to get that in the Sea Org, right?
Right.
Anyways, so by this stage, I'd been sent to Flag for training for a whole year. So by the time I got back, because the marriage was never consummated, it ended up being annulled anyway.
Right.
So it's like it never happened.
Oh, I had one of those. Yeah. That's a whole other story, but yes.
Oh, okay. So it's important to know that this goes on because years later, once I left Scientology, I had no problem whatsoever, right?
Of course.
Which made me laugh. But I never had any issue after that. It was fine. Now,
well, this is part of trauma that people have to understand. You're still in the traumatizing environment, and now you're supposed to do one of the things that has been part of your trauma inside the environment where it occurred. Like that's almost impossible, like unless you had copious amounts of wine or other drugs to just completely disassociate from your body and from all of that stuff, this is, and people who have experienced any type of sexual trauma, this is totally normal. It is not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to think you're broken or you're never going to be able to enjoy that portion of your life. But it is important to note that, like, obviously once you were removed from the major traumatic environment, you were able to like have something different in your life, which is really good.
Yeah. And so, and years later, when my children were probably about 4 years old or something, I was just sitting in a hairdresser's reading a magazine, and I read an article and it explained what that's called. And I was going, yes, that's it. And it's called vaginismus.
Yes.
And I hadn't heard of it before. And it just makes complete sense to me. And it was, yes, that's what it was, Anyway, that was important to say that. So LHCOM, and this guy is getting a committee of evidence always against all policy. They are determined he's going. So sadly, even though my statistics were up and I was doing great, blah, 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 I was removed from post, and along with everybody else, unless they were kicked out because they were declared or whatever,
right.
I had to do the RPF again.
No.
Yeah. So they put me on the RPF. So here we go again.
But this time you're on land. This time you're in England still.
Yeah.
So it's at St. Hill.
So the RPF, we're based at the Stonelands. At night time, we're put in a minibus and driven 30 something odd miles into central London to the Tottenham Court Road org, which was the only London org at the time,
Right.
Which is now the book centre and the walk-in centre. And we had to decorate the course room and stuff like that. But people would say to us, they would see us running. We had to run from A to D and do exercises on the pavement in public, on the pavement in central London at 3 a.m.
Sure.
They must have thought we were completely nuts. So we were doing that for a while. And then I thought, I am just done. I've had enough. By this stage, my mum had left because she'd had a stroke. My brother-in-law had been kicked out from when he was the CEO. My sister had left. Everybody was gone. My brother had left. My brother was living with, I don't know if you know Ira Shaliff. So he was living with Ira and Sheila at the time, who was Ira's wife. And I thought, there's nothing for me here anymore. I'm not going to be treated like dog shit again. And so I just had to do what's called a completed staff work, where you just ask. I think you mentioned this in the last session, but I had to ask permission to leave. And so I made up the fact I've got some debts and I need to go moonlighting to make some money, because, you know, you wouldn't want to bring Scientology into disrepute.
No, never.
And I left. And then I had someone called Simon Wackley knocking on my door and ringing the bell. And then he had other people call me, and they were trying to get me to come back. And of course, there's no way. I wasn't answering their calls. I wasn't going to go to the door. My sister was really good at shielding them and telling them to F off when they're not interested. And then I did, and then I did some work working for a Scientologist in town who ran a burger place. I was flipping burgers for him and making coleslaw and stuff. I didn't do that for very long. And then another ex-Scientologist who was great, actually, who's also declared, he found me a job in central London working for an IT company. But not before I was asked by David Gaiman to come and work as his PA. So what happened was,
and just pause there for a second. So David Gaiman is Neil Gaiman's father. We all know Neil Gaiman from his books and now his sex scandal, which is not a shock to me after all the upbringing that we've all been through. But Neil Gaiman, David Gaiman, is still to this day employed by the Church of Scientology. He's still listed on their corporate documents as like one of the trustees for,
even though he died years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Neil Gaiman's family, deep in with Lafayette Ronald, trained under Lafayette Ronald in St. Hill when he was there before he went to sea. And then when he went to sea, he left things in England in the charge of David and his wife. And so Neil was brought up. I know in interviews, he's like, oh, that was just my parents' thing. First of all, this man was running the London organization as a 19-year-old. Okay, so don't tell me it was just my parents' deal. Like, so much denial from him on his involvement, which is probably, in my personal opinion, led to his weird sexual proclivities, because anybody who reads Dianetics more than once in their life is going to end up with some weird shit, that you should go see a therapist, but he never will.
No, and for the majority of the time that I was at St. Hill, they were not in the Sea Org, right? So they were members of the public. David and I think Herbie ran what was the staff canteen at the time, right? So, but we didn't get the money from that, just saying, right? We didn't get the money from the canteen. This was David and Herbie's business. So, and it was family run. So, Herbie's wife, Jenny, was running the cafe with Rhoda Zeffert, who was Sheila Gaiman's sister, Right, Anyway.
Always so nepotistic.
Yeah. So there was Neil and Claire and Lizzie, and Neil always had, as a kid, was always if you ever went round to the house, was always in his bedroom reading books. He was always into his kind of fantasy and his books and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah,
always into it. And then Claire and Lizzie, I remember them helping out at G&G, which was Gaiman and Gaiman, the vitamin shop that all the Scientologists had to go and do their shopping in.
Of course.
And David, a very good Jewish boy.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's wild to me that like all of this was recreated in Florida with like the One Stoppy Shoppy, which is run by the oh God, what's his name? It's a Greek guy and I can't remember his name right now. But like his whole family runs that whole empire of like things. And then you of course had the other vitamin guy in Los Angeles who put out all that stuff. And that was a whole, the Gilmans, Janice's parents. So yeah, it's like the Scientologists glommed on to certain things and made these like little mini empires for themselves, in these health and wellness things that became like acceptable offshoots of Scientology because, the Purif and all this stuff. As soon as the Purif launched, it was like vitamins, we got it. Like everybody was into it. So yeah, it's a whole other scam.
Yeah, it's a bit like our members of parliament and the PPP during COVID. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. There was a lot of that going on.
Totally.
Anyway, so David asked me to be his secretary and his housekeeper. Now, this, of course, he was going through his steps, what they call steps A to E, because he'd been declared because of the whole GO
Operation
collapse.
Snow White and all that stuff. Yeah,
and all of that. And actually, I mean, David was I liked him. He was a nice guy. I did like him. And I needed a job and he was happy to take me on. I thought, well, I don't care. Of course I'll do it. And when I was in the RPF, Sheila was in the RPF with me, and so was Neil, and so was Claire. And Neil gave me my last sec check. And I always remember one of the...
You don't dabble in Scientology and end up on the concentration camp. Like you can't be like, oh, I didn't really do that. Like, and you were in the concentration camp auditing, doing counseling 5 hours a day and running everywhere and doing construction. Like that's the least dabble you can do.
Well, Claire was riding the dump truck. She's married to someone called Tim. They're in Clearwater, I think, aren't they? In CMO. But anyway,
wild.
She ran the dump truck, and we were building this castle. So the new extension to the castle, we were building that. Yeah, we were putting down all the flooring and the copper things you got to put in between the bricks and the breeze blocks, and carrying bricks and running everywhere and using crowbar. It was really fit. I mean, we were really fit.
Oh yeah, that was the best diet I was ever on.
Yeah. What? The no food diet.
The no food, run everywhere, burning 10,000 calories, eating 1,000 a day. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know. And also I remember doing the purification rundown when I was, I don't know, 16 or 17. And I remember being in there was a lady next to me who'd had a lot of magic mushrooms and all LSD and all sorts of drugs. And she was sweating white milk, Yeah, I mean,
I don't think that's supposed to come out of you.
Yeah, it's just gross. And I remember getting sunburns, the shape of my swimming costume coming out in my body, and stuff like that. It was really wild. But then you would if you're in 5 hours, 6 hours in a sauna every day.
And taking an overdose of niacin. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like it's what, like when you do the science now on like how much niacin a person is supposed to consume on a day, and you think that like for weeks you were at like the maximum of 3,000 milligrams of niacin, that's like people's livers are being obliterated on that program. It is wild.
And children do this program. You know, it's horrendous.
I first did it when I was 12, and then I did it again in my 20s. So yeah.
Anyway, I don't think Neil was on the RPF for long. And then I don't know what he was doing, but I remember him giving me a sec check, because I remember one of the questions he was asking about that when was the last BJ I gave somebody, it's just crazy. I know that was one of the questions, and I thought, really...
For all of the people who think Scientology isn't completely obsessed with sex, that's a normal question while you're getting interrogated. Absolutely normal.
Yeah. Anyway, it just reaffirmed for me how mad the organization was. It was just nuts. So I'm working for David, and actually, he taught me to write my first check. Quelle surprise, I'd never written a check or
of course not.
About money. So he was teaching me about money, because my parents never taught me anything about money. all I ever knew about money is how we never ever had it in Scientology.
Right? We didn't have enough. That was it. Yeah.
And then one day I was at the kitchen sink washing up or something, and Sheila came in because the whole family, she had to try and come and handle David because of his being on the A2E. And she shouted at me and kicked me out the house.
Wow.
Said, "What are you doing here? Yeah, you're not allowed to be here." And she kicked me out. So I went back to my sister's place where I was staying. And then 2 weeks later, she called me back and she said, would I like to, can she take me for a coffee? So I went for coffee with her at a hotel in town. And I thought she was going to apologize, but there wasn't a bar of that. I never heard from David ever again. He never gave me an apology. He never wanted to check how I was.
Right.
And it wasn't an apology. She was just trying to handle me and get me back in. So that didn't work very well.
Of course.
Yeah. So then I'm out, and this ex-Scientologist gets me a job working in London in IT. And then from that point onwards, my life was fine. I started to find my feet again, but I chose a partner, somebody who was really earthbound, not at all spiritual, not ever going to be ever interested in any cults or woo-woo or anything. And it's the best thing I could have done because I learned to drive. I learned what it meant to make proper money. When I got my first paycheck, it was probably 3-4 times what I made, over 4 years or something in like 1 month.
Isn't that, now, let me ask you that. So like after, what was that feeling like when you were like, you're thinking in your mind about all the work you've done, probably about all the things you didn't get done, and that maybe you're going to get fired probably because you're not cutting the mustard. You're not getting all these things done at once. Your speed of particle flow is shit. Like you're not doing enough. And then you see your check. And what was your thoughts? Did you have thoughts of like, oh, I don't deserve this. This is wild. Should I ask someone? Like what was the thought process?
Yeah. So I remember distinctly thinking, is this really all for me? Has there been a mistake?
Right.
Is this really? Yeah, because that's right. It's drummed into you. Never good enough. You're not good enough. You can do better. Do better. This isn't okay. Start again. Flunk. Start again. Flunk. And so, over the years, it took me a long time to realize that actually I was really dedicated at whatever I was doing. I was really bloody good at what I did.
Yeah.
Because I did come to work on time. I did put in the hours. I put in extra hours because that's all I'd ever known.
Right.
But for the first few months, I would go and have a coffee and I'd always be looking behind me,
right.
and checking my watch and being scared that I'd being followed. I mean, I was quite paranoid initially.
Did you clock out for lunch when you first started? Or did you just sit at your desk eating and working?
I did a lot of that.
My first job out of the Sea Org, I never clocked out for like the first 2 weeks. And then I didn't realize I clocked in for the day and then I would clock out for the day. And so after, like, when the first paycheck was being generated, my boss comes up to me. He's like, listen, we need to talk. And I was like, oh God, I'm fired already. What's happening? And she's like, well, there seems to be a problem with your time card. And I was like, was I late? What happened? Did I, that one time, we talked about that, like this whole thing. And she's like, no, I don't see any times that you've clocked out for lunch. And I was like, oh, no, I just eat at my desk and keep working. I'm good. I don't need to clock. I don't need to take a lunch. That seems inefficient. And she's like, no, you have to take a lunch. And I was like, no, I don't have to take, I'm good. And she's like, no, you're not understanding me. Like, legally, if you don't clock out and take a break and then come back, like, we can get in trouble with the labor board. And I was like, you mean I have to not be working while I'm eating, or you guys are going to get like, I was so flabbergasted, right? Just like, what? And she's like, yeah, can you please actually take lunch? Can you please do that? And I was like, oh, okay. I don't want you to get in trouble. Like, that's crazy. Like,
yeah. But I was a really dedicated little soldier. I really was. But what's great is that the bosses used to take me out for lunch. Like, come on, what are you doing? You don't need to sit. It's lunchtime. Come on. And literally, and this is in the 80s, right? In England, when Maggie Thatcher was in power, and it was boom time. And she we would go to like special clubs and things that they had, and have really lovely food that they'd pay for, didn't have to pay for it. And I couldn't believe it. And we went for sort of wet lunches, as it were. You would
Yeah.
have supposed to go back an hour, but if the boss is with you, sometimes 3 hours we
Sure.
take
You're
for lunch.
talking. It's good. It's business. It's a write-off.
It's nuts, crazy. And then I started doing lots of temp work, which I really enjoyed, because that gave me afforded me the opportunity to go and learn about all different kinds of jobs and that kind of stuff. So that was cool. And then I worked in the city, and that was amazing. That was I earned so much money. It was just crazy, crazy, crazy times, And in the city, it didn't used to sleep in the 80s. You'd get
Oh,
people would
sure.
come into 4 in the morning, and the traders would be there really early and on the
Yeah.
floor, and then we would sort of had the most amazing canteen. I thought, oh my God, if you knew what I grew up with. This is like a party in your mouth every day. It was just amazing. Breakfast, lunch, and anything you wanted, whenever you wanted, at a hugely reduced rate.
Sure.
And then there was something called Big Bang, when it all went tits up, and the banks were sort of buying out all of the smaller brokers and what have you, and things changed. But
Well,
nevertheless, it was
that was the international bank collapse in the late 80s, when we had the collapse for the young people in the audience who didn't survive that. We had an international monetary collapse in the 80s. We had the end of the 70s, and a lot of international banking, trading, other rules changed in 1970, which is what we see the income disparity now. Just to do a quick economic. So prior to the 70s, we had World War II. People come back from the war. All the countries are giving incentives, right? We had what's called the GI Bill here in America. I don't know what they called it in England, but returning soldiers from the war were given a lot of things. Here, they were given university. They were given help to buy their first home, which is where we got all these homes everywhere in America being built and stuff, and what gave birth to what is now known as the American dream, right? And people were working factory jobs. They were working, just regular jobs, but they could afford a house, 2 cars, their kids, and to send their kids to university. And in 1970, all of the banking regulations and everything else went out the fucking window. And that's where you start to see the average income stay like this, and the CEO and the investor and the top of the hill income start skating away from each other at just landmark rates, where we are now, where you have a CEO of an average company makes at least 500 times of what their worker does, right? And along with that, in the 80s, we had the Wall Street boom for a bit there in the beginning of 80s, where we had, greed is good, Gordon Gekko, the yuppie movement, and then all the small banks collapsed, which was a huge scandal here in America,
right.
but it spread out. People think that just
Yeah.
affected America. It didn't. It affected the whole world. And we had a huge economic collapse in the 80s. Which then people sort of like try to pretend didn't happen in the 90s and just kept going. And then we had the next boom, which was, of course, the .com boom in the early 2000s with the advent of the internets. And then that failed. And then right after that failed, we had the housing boom, which then, of course, collapsed in 2008. And now we're guys, we're on track. It's 2025. What's the next collapse going to be worldwide? And now we have the crypto boom. That's where
Yeah.
we're at now here in 2025. So,
yeah. But of course, you never, don't know anything about this when you're in the Sea Org. It's all kind of,
it just gets blamed on psychs, right? It just gets blamed
Yeah.
on psychiatry and psychiatrists. Every collapse that happens, well, that's because that person was actually connected. I mean, like, I don't know if you obviously weren't an active Scientologist during 9/11, right? Okay, so at 9/11, which of course the whole world knows about, that affected the entire universe. David Miscavige wrote a bulletin, a religious technology center bulletin, because of course Lafayette Ronald is long past, where I have to get a hold of this because I used to have it and I know people have it, but it is called the Wake Up Call. And in this manifesto that he writes, he basically blames all of 9/11 on not Osama bin Laden, but on Osama bin Laden's right-hand man, who he claims is a psychiatrist, which we all know is not, that wasn't a thing. And that's why Osama bin Laden went bad, because his guy was a psychiatrist, and this is why we have to end psychiatry. So if you are sitting on your ass right now as a Scientologist and you're not joining the Sea Organization, get up off your ass and join the Sea Org and join staff and do all these things. And it was supposed to get this wave of like just people running for their lives into the organization to clear the planet, you know, which of course didn't happen. But it's always, no matter what, the enemy is either doctors, the government, or psychiatry, or all three. Those were Lafayette Ronald's three boogeymen, okay? The three horsemen of his personal apocalypse. The government, specifically the FBI, who he was terrified of. You know, the medicos, all of medical science, which he just threw into a basket called the medicos. And then, of course, the separate, most evil basket, psychiatry, who later, if you continue with Lafayette Ronald's works, and he does go over it a little bit in the like the OEC, FEBC, and of course in the research and discovery volumes, which they don't even exist anymore. They don't let that out of the bag. But he basically tells everybody that psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists of any kind, mental health professionals are all reincarnated overlords from the enemy galaxy that have come here to enslave man forever.
Yeah.
That's who they are.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
And we believe that shit.
Crazy.
I mean, we believe that.
Yeah.
I believed it.
And then, yeah.
We fight people in the street for that. I mean, isn't it wild to think about that though, Danielle? Like to think about being a true believer of Lafayette Ronald and his nonsense. Like you had the experience at least to like be in his presence, right? To see the man behind the legend, behind all the photographs, you know, like I just had to look at the creepy doodle photographs. Let me ask you, in real life, was he as creepy as the photographs that are everywhere in all of the places?
No, I mean, you know, there's that creepy interview where he's laughing and he's got his hat on at the desk with that green background behind him.
Yeah.
He's not like that. I mean, he could be quite charming. He could. But you wouldn't trust him. You would not want to get on his bad side. And he, as I said, you know, when I was scrubbing the floor that day and he had the tantrum, he scares the pants off of you. And also when you're a child, he looks that much bigger. He was a big man.
Right.
And I think as an adult, it probably wouldn't be quite as sort of daunting, but he certainly was a big man, and I was afraid of him, but and in awe. Everyone's in awe of him, you know.
Right. Everything that comes out of his mouth is magic. Everything that he says and does is ordained, is source. Whether it's him having that tantrum, which of course had nothing to do with his own psychosis, it was because, you know, he was impinging on the person that needed impinging on. You know, all of these things are excused away. And it's also, I think, in the same way that David Miscavige's behavior, which is a mirror of Lafayette Ronald, but I think cranked up even worse than he was, it is all like, well, you know, he's bearing the burden of clearing the planet, of doing all these things. So of course it's going to be too much at some point, and he has to, like, you know, let the steam out. Like, but if you or I did that as just the little peons that we were, that's it. You're evil and suppressive.
Yeah, and what's weird is that despite the shitty stuff that LRH did, including locking me up, I truly believe that if he was fully compos mentis and he saw how David Miscavige was running things and the history of how he has run things, he'd be out of his ear.
Right. That's what I said the other day. I was like, if L. Ron came back, okay, like as Scientologists believe that he's going to return from Target 2. Yeah. Okay. So if he came back fully like aware of everything that he had done, and he walked into any, and I do mean any, organization bearing his name on planet Earth, he would be like, what is this garbage? This is not what I wrote. This is not what I said. Look at, what's this? You're an ideal org? Who said that? Who said that? What happened to the last thing that I told you guys on what you're supposed to be doing, the L. Ron Hubbard, executive directive 339R on the birthday game. What happened to that? Right? Nobody's trying to be Saint Hill size anymore. That's not a thing. Right? You're an ideal org.
Yeah. And yet, when I was on the ship, and I can't find any, this is so frustrating. So if anybody's heard this before, please let me know. When I was on the ship, I memorized something that he wrote.
Okay.
And I've never found anybody else. And it's a song. I'm not going to sing it, but I'll say the words. I don't know if he sang it when he told, I don't think he sang it. I would have, no. And it goes, who cares about the fate of the jerk who came too late? If he will drink cyanide, he should not expect to thrive. With trigger finger curled, man set out to shoot the world, but instead he shot himself, so let's leave him on the shelf. For his world was going down, down, down to die. Lord, said I, we're going up while the world wears a frown. Something like that. I've forgotten a little bit. While others all die, we are very alive, so why not join up and survive?
I've heard that.
Who cares about the fate of the jerk who came too late? If he will drink cyanide, he should not expect to thrive. With trigger finger curled, man set out to shoot the world, but instead he shot himself, so let's leave him on the shelf. For his world was going down, down, down to die. Lord, said I, we're going up while the world goes down. We wear a smile while the world wears a frown. While others all die, we are very alive. So why not join up and survive? And it must have been a recruitment campaign thing. But I can't find anybody else who can remember it.
Let's see here. Because I know I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can look for it another time, I guess. But it just, was interesting, right?
No, that is an interesting one. I mean, there's also like the lost things that he wrote, like Excalibur, that nobody reads anymore. That's just, like these things are, you can sometimes people have like posted them on weird parts of the internet. Then there's things that people suppose that he wrote, like the brainwashing manual that came out in 1954, and like these other weird things that were like all precursors to Dianetics and Scientology as like a thing, which makes total sense to me because he was a complete snake oil salesman, Yeah, Joy of Creating has a song that sounds like that. That's what I'm looking for. There's an album. There's an album that he put out called The Joy of Creating. And I'm trying to think of what song it would be. The names of these songs are so wild, right? It's probably the Dougie Fresh song. I'll be honest with you, because that one is we're going up while the world's going down. So
do you think he took someone else's song and then changed the words to fit?
No. I think he wrote it and then like Dougie Fresh performed it later, because there's the Joy of Creating album is one that came out, I want to say like in the early 80s, and he has a lot, like Isaac Hayes is on the album.
Yeah, this was on the ship when I first heard it, so I was like 12 years old,
Yeah, and I think they took these things and then they made them into like, the Golden Era musicians put together. Right. The former Apollo stars became
the Golden Era stars.
Right? Right? They became the Golden Era musicians. And they're still making weird music. Lara is just quoting stuff like this is the Joy of Creating, right? Which is I say this sometimes to my kids as a joke because it's so ridiculous. Let me get the whole thing here on the screen. So force yourself to smile and you'll soon stop frowning. Force yourself to laugh and you'll soon find something to laugh about. Wax enthusiastic and you'll very soon feel so. A being causes his own feelings. The greatest joy there is in life is creating. Splurge on it. Right? Like just the stupid.
So don't have any babies, no babies.
Don't have babies. Don't have babies. Babies are gross. Babies are dev tea. Babies are bad news bears. Now let me ask you about that. So let's when your children they're younger than me. So you finally had kids, okay? What was your thought process while you were pregnant with your daughters? Like what were you feeling at that time? What were you thinking? Because that's a big time in someone's life when you're growing people inside you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely feeling really, really blessed and very, very, very protective of the two babies inside me. I had twins, and then the two babies for the rest of their lives, even still today, nobody dare come between me and my kids. And that includes Scientology. And my girls, they will never, ever, ever, ever join a cult at all. They just won't. They know my story and they are really good human beings, really dynamic, doing really, really well in life. And I'm really proud of them. And boy, did I protect them. And I made sure that they had schooling. So I was determined they weren't going to be pulled from one school to another, because I went to 15 bloody schools around the world, no way. So I was going to, and that includes junior schools and stuff like that.
Sure.
So my girls had their play group, then they had their junior school, middle school, senior school, college, and their degrees. And that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
Did you ever think like while you were pregnant, like, ooh, is Scientology going to come recruit these children?
Oh, no. My thought process is Scientology will never recruit these children.
And no one in your family was still left in Scientology at that point.
Thank God. I don't think I would have left if I'd had to have left somebody behind. That would have been really difficult. And my heart goes out to people who've had. I have a friend who's had to leave her son behind in Denmark. And years she's been out for years, and it has no contact with him, and I just find that incredibly painfully horrible for them. And Claire had,
it's a different experience. I mean, when I left, my mom was still very much in. I was living with her, and she was working for Narconon International, and doing her upper levels and things like that. And my ex-husband, his mom was, still continuing up, the bridge to nowhere. And so when my kids were born, my mother-in-law came to me one day and she was like, hey, for Christmas, I would love to get, the boys their lifetime memberships. Now, mind you, my oldest is 3.5. The other one is a newborn. And I looked this woman dead in her eyes and I said, absolutely not. And she was like, why not? And I said, first of all, number one, if you have $7,000 lying around, you can give it to us to care for these children. Number one. Number two, your son never got proper dental care. Okay. Because you let him join the Sea Org when he was 12. You want to go fix his teeth? That's going to cost us about $7,000. That would be a much better use of your money to take care of your own kid. Third of all, my children are children. I said, they're not having a lifetime membership anywhere. I don't want them to have a lifetime membership to Gold's Gym. Okay. They're not old enough to make a decision if they want to commit their whole life to something. So don't you dare put my children in those, in that position of being a member of something that they're not choosing. And she was like flabbergasted. And I said to her, no, my mom did make this clear my whole life. She was like, you can choose Scientology, but like, let's be real. It was like, but you're totally going to choose it, right? Like you're totally choosing that, right? But she would say, you have the choice. So I was trying to like present it like that. Like my mom gave me the choice. My kids are going to have a choice. But privately, my ex-husband and I are like, there's no fucking choice. That's never happening. Go fuck yourself. No. Like we're not doing that. I mean, he joined the Sea Org when he was 12. you know, because he was in regular school and he was being horrifically bullied. And of course, the recruiters came along and were like, you're the most important person we've ever met on planet Earth. And you're like Superman. We need your help. And he's like, that sounds good to me, you know? And he joined. So it was a struggle. She died still being a true believer. Like, and I basically wasn't, I removed myself from the funeral services, but I knew I wasn't going to be allowed there because the rest of her family and friends were still very much believers. But I didn't want to take that from my ex-husband. I was like, you go and, you know, celebrate your mom. That's totally fine. I'll celebrate her from over here, far, far away.
So is your mom still in?
No, I got her out, but it took a decade. It took a decade of very slowly, you know, giving her more information, because she got in the 70s and she had been in for 40 years, you know, so 40. And this is the part that I think people forget. Like, you spent the first quarter of your life in Scientology. And even despite what you went through at such a young age, under the hands of Lafayette Ronald, you still joined again and ended up in the same place. And people would go, how can you do that? And the part about it that people don't understand is that when your whole life and every aspect of your life is encompassed with this and you don't know anything else, the absolute terror of going into this unknown that you've only been told is evil and out to get you and you'll probably die, and like all of the scenarios that they tell you, right? It's the terror that you know is better than this unknown atrocities that you can't even imagine. You know? But was it because your family had left before you that you were like, you had this arm out for you?
Yeah. But it didn't stop me. I mean, it's still even occasionally happens now where, you know, say I got in the old days, I would get a cold after I'd left. Was going, oh, I must be PTS. You know, that you still have that.
Yeah,
you still
of course.
Have that.
Of course.
I yawned. Oh no. What word don't I understand?
It couldn't be that you're just tired or bored.
Oh, yeah, or you just need some fresh air. How's that for a thing?
Do you ever get that thing where you're like reading and you're so into it that you forget to like your body just stops doing its thing, and then you're like, oh fuck, I gotta breathe. You get like dizzy. You're like, oh, because you're just like you're so in another world. Yeah, and it's like, oh no, I've ruined myself. It's like the mental complexities that all of us have in common as former members of this ridiculous cult. It's astounding to me. I wish somebody sciencey would do like a study on that specifically about like the commonalities that cults in general, high control groups, not just Scientology, but these other groups. Like, have you ever met with like an ex-member of another high control group?
Yes.
And
because there are organizations
stories.
Yes.
And what was your take on hearing their stories?
So many similarities, just in another, they call it something different.
Right.
Yeah. But I do think Scientology is more embedded than most cults that I've heard about in terms of indoctrination and the trauma. I don't entirely understand how or why, but I'm pretty sure. I've heard, I think Natalie mentioned it once, that there's a psychologist or psychiatrist in America who has been working with cults for a long time, and says that when he counsels people who have been in Scientology, it takes them 4 times as long to get to a good point than it would somebody else in another cult.
That tracks. Yeah. I mean, I think it's, you know, I have a lot of personal theories on that. I think that like Scientology is unique in certain ways where you have the machinery that's involved, you have the e-meter, you have all of these things in Scientology that are designed to take away your autonomy, your belief in yourself, right? Besides just the usual cult thing where you're turning over your self-determinism, your autonomy to the cult leader and being like, well, if they say it's okay, then I'm going to do it, right? We had that with Lafayette Ronald. We would refer to the tech. We would comb through the tomes to find the answer to our question, because he discovered everything, guys. There's nothing he didn't cover. Okay. So if you had a question about life, you would just find the reference, and then you're like, okay, that's what I do now. So you had that aspect of it, but you also have this machine that is telling you that you have an answer to a question that consciously you're going, I don't have an answer to that question.
Yeah.
I think that's a no. But now your spirit, your mind, which is separate from you, that you can't see, that only this machine can perceive, is telling you, yes. And so now you're like, okay, now I have to find an answer. And then you get into this, imaginary realm, right? Where you are fabricating memories. It's complete false memory syndrome, where you're fabricating these fantasies, not just in other lifetimes, which is a whole other ball of wax, but in this lifetime, in this life that you've existed in this body, you're fabricating scenarios for yourself in the answer to these crazy questions, right? Because you have to have an answer if the e-meter says yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they don't have an e-meter, do they? And a lot of them, it's more about God. In the majority of them, is about God, and they don't have these extra dimensions of courses that we have. The indoctrination.
And God is finite. You know what I mean? Like, they have the one book that they refer to. Now, the thing that gets twisted there, though, is everybody has an interpretation of that book. That if 20 different preachers can read the same sentence and have 20 different meanings for that same exact sentence. Whereas in Scientology, there's supposedly just the one and only. If you don't understand it, you don't understand a word there, or you have an overt connected to that concept, or you have an evil purpose connected to that concept, or you are connected to somebody who's evil, right? There's all these scenarios as to why you won't gain comprehension, and all of them drive you further and further and further into yourself, rather than in God religions. It's like, well, you're just bad, so you should go pray about that.
Talking to an ashtray, and I know.
Every time I think about like shouting at the ashtray, are you a corner? Like, and I used to get, like, people would get so upset when I would do it, because, it says as loudly as you can. I took that very seriously. People would have to leave the course room because I was so loud, screaming at that stupid ashtray, stand up, thank you. Like, I would lose my voice just screaming at this.
Nev told a story how he was on course in London Org, and the course room's down, kind of in a basement down there. And some guy came to read the electricity meter, and he came down and he was escorted through the course room to go to and he ran out. He ran away.
Of course he did. There's people screaming at ashtrays and fucking throwing people into walls. Thank you. Turn around. Look at that wall. Like, if I walked into a place where people are just manhandling each other and making people touch stuff, I'd be like, that's it. Fucking out of here. Oh my God. I mean, it's just like, and when I was on the RPF, it got so wild on the RPF. We were not being supervised. I was a supervisor, right? So I had a student who was having a lot of difficulties on, training routine number 7, which is where you're manhandling another person, guys. You are the person who's training the person in that moment can do anything to resist the person's commands. Okay, anything. And that's where you have to do the look at that wall, thank you, walk over to that wall, thank you, touch that wall, thank you, turn around. Those are the commands. You do them over and over and over, and you're walking back and forth. So we were in the basement of the big blue buildings, which it's all cement. It's just cement, like little hallways. And we're doing that. And I was tiny at the time. I was like a, $110, but I was like, I could do this thing where I could plant myself and you just couldn't move me, because I would put my center of gravity like so low, because I'm a smallish woman. So I could get down there, and he was this big man, and he got so angry that he could not move me, that at one point he just picked me up and literally threw me as hard as he could into the other wall. And I ended up breaking like 3 ribs. And I didn't know I had broken them at the time. I just thought, okay, I'm going to keep going. And we go through this thing, and I ended up dislocating another rib in my back. And by the time we got upstairs, like I was having trouble breathing. I was having like, all, of course now I'm in trouble. All the things are going on. And they took me to the doctor, and they took an x-ray, and they're like, yeah, you broke some ribs. You're going to have to like not do stuff. So here I am with like a back brace on, trying to be at the, the assemblies, the musters that we're having, that you're supposed to shout and things. And I can't do any of that. I'm trying to like squeeze my ribs. I can't run. I can't do, it was like, and ribs don't heal, guys, like all the way unless you maintain like total stillness. So it was, I still get pains for those because they didn't heal right. It's just, yeah,
crazy.
It's awful. I mean, like, so many stories from the concentration camp that are nuts, because it was just literally Lord of the Flies, and you were supposed to get things that I can't even imagine. I'm trying to think of like, I know you guys were doing a good job building the castle, but knowing that that was built primarily by people on the concentration camp doesn't surprise me. But also I go like, how many corners were cut? How many things were done completely incorrectly, and then just
we're
sort
not
of like,
trained. It's the same as who was, being on the ship.
Right.
You just had to make it go right.
Yeah.
None of us were sailors. Maybe Captain Bill or somebody had been, I don't know if they'd been in the Navy or something, but, they hadn't, the majority of people on the ship had never sailed or known what to do.
No, it's just people, he was like, you'll get it.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Well, none of us have ever done construction either when we get sent to the concentration camp. I mean, like, we had a couple people who somehow had gotten like contracting licenses in their particular field. Like, we had a licensed plumber who was also in the concentration camp. And then we had an electrician, but he was the electrician for the whole big blue building. He wasn't in the concentration camp. So he would come, and he was in charge of us. He would tell us, okay, so when you're making a circuit breaker board, right, this is how you do it. So he's just showing us. And so we were all counted as his apprentices. So when you, in America, if you are like at a certain level of training or experience in one of those fields, you're what's called a journeyman, right? Because you've reached thousands and thousands of hours of experience. And as a journeyman, legally, you can have apprentices under you. Now, per California state law, those apprentices, now normally, like today, if I were to take a job as an apprentice as under an electrician, I'd be getting paid like $25, $30 an hour just to be learning how to do the job on the job. Okay. But we were just thrown into this. They were like, oh, do you have experience with blah, blah, blah? Do you have this? And I'm like, well, my dad taught me a few things. I know the difference between a Phillips head and a flathead. Does that help? And they're like, you're in. And so we're laying this electrical everywhere, but like still bad things always happened. There were so many accidents, so many problems. I mean, none of us were certified masons, but here we are stuccoing the entire side of the blue building ourselves, hanging off those little window washer things from like 1970. Like, it's just like the amount of stuff that we did that was so illegal, so not to code, so not, I'm sure in England they have similar laws on like how to dispose of hazardous materials and things like that.
Yeah. It's nuts. It's crazy. But on the flip side, from an admin point of view, learning how to operate in Scientology, this thing about, make it go right, make it go right, make it go right all the time, always on course and at cause.
Yeah.
So in what they used to call, I'm not even going to use the term because it's so derogatory, but out in the real world, out in the real world, it meant that we made it go right, even if we didn't know the job. Because that's all we'd ever known, is that you had to know the job, come what may. So you just made it go right. So I was always learning new jobs. I could get jobs I'd never been trained for because
you already knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, do I know how to do that? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no, and that's the thing that I think people think of as this arrogance that Scientologists have, because it does come off very arrogant. Is exactly that mindset, because none of us for any moment of our lives, especially children who were raised in it, we're allowed to be like, I don't know how to do that. What's that? I don't know was not a phrase that was acceptable. Is never acceptable in Scientology. You ever hear anybody say, I don't know?
Nah.
Never. You couldn't say, I don't know. That's comlag, it's backflash, it's DevT, it's all these things that are, you're just, so you never say, I don't know.
No. And if you don't know, you got to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just say, I'm on, right, you know, like you give the, I don't know if you ever seen the movie, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. But
oh, no.
So her mom goes on holiday and there's 4 siblings and she's 18. She's like going into her senior year, or she's just graduated and all her friends are off to college, but she doesn't really know what she's going to do. So her mom is like, I'm going on holiday to Australia. You kids have fun here by yourself. And she was like this super strict parent. So anyway, this nightmare babysitter comes and she has like a heart attack and dies, and they bury her and they do this whole thing. And so now she has to pretend that she's an adult. So she goes and gets this job in the fashion industry where she really wants, that's like her dream, is to work in the fashion industry. So she just like makes up this resume, and this woman hires her who's named Rose, and she's trying to like do all this stuff and she has no idea. She's just literally faking the whole thing. And her boss asks her, where's the report on, you know, whatever? And she's like, just say, I'm right on top of that, Rose. She's like, I'm right on top of that, Rose. Like, that's like the key. Like, it's the same thing of like, just make it go right. Like, so that's like a joke for people in my age group and like the 90s kids, where if we're faking something, it's like, I'm right on top of that, Rose. Like, yeah, you don't know what the fuck you're doing, but it's like an acceptable way to say, making it go right. I'm just gonna fake it till you make it.
Yeah, that's what we had to do.
Exactly. So Scientologists, especially people who spent time in the fake Space Navy, come off incredibly arrogant and rude, because they're just like, oh, you don't know how to do that? Get out of here. I got it. And they have no clue what they're doing. They'll just do it. Like, you just steamroll your way through life.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. I just remembered something I didn't tell you about. It's weird how sometimes these things become a non-event. Like the marriage for me was a non-event, right? But I was engaged again to somebody else. I mean, this happens a lot in the Sea Org, or it did.
Oh, sure.
Where, people marrying people and getting divorced and then marrying somebody else and having a relation. Oh, just crazy. Anyway, I was engaged to a guy who was from London Org, actually, and he'd come down to St. Hill. And just as we got engaged, I got put on the RPF. And the girl who took over from me as LRH Com, so he excuse me, he gave me some flowers. He had some particular flowers he really liked, and I thought they were lovely, and he gave those to me. And he gave me a particular perfume that he liked. Anyway, not that I liked, right? He liked.
He wants you to smell like this. I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I had the perfume on my desk and the flowers. And then when I got removed to the RPF, he called me. In those days, we didn't have cell phones, mobile phones, and he phoned me on the public phone in the hallway outside the galley at Stonelands, where we were living when I was on the RPF. And he broke up with me over the phone, and I was devastated. And that night we were going to London Org to paint the basement, what have you. And you just have to do physical work, right? You can't just cry and feel sorry for yourself. You just got to get on with it, And so everything's like repressed again. Anyway, about a month later or something, I needed to kind of end cycle on this whole thing, as we used to call it, and go and finish up with him and get my stuff and whatever. And he had then become engaged to one of my besties. And
of course.
And I walked into the office, my old office, and on her desk was the perfume and the flowers. So that's when I found out that they were engaged and having a relationship. And that's why he broke up with me. And then a few months later, after I'd left Scientology, they had a baby, and she actually had the audacity to call me over to admire her child. They're not together
because
anymore.
People in Scientology, you have to realize though too, guys, for the audience who's just like, I can't, this is like a soap opera, I cannot look away. In Scientology, you're yourself and your relationship with another person, like in the real world, in the world we exist in now, when you choose somebody to wake up next to every day and make meals with and make a life with and raise your children with, that is a huge commitment, because every day isn't a fucking rainbow with kittens coming out of your butt when you're in a relationship with somebody. It's all over the place. It is those days, and some days it's like, oh my God, what? And especially when you have children are a question mark. You never know what's going to happen with kids. One day they love you, the next day they've got hormones and now they're in charge, and it's like a whole thing, right? So you don't know. It's a mixed bag. But when you're in the fake space Navy, especially, and when you're in Scientology, you and that person are just a matter of convenience. It just means that the two of you combine, create more power, which equals money to give to Scientology. That's it. It doesn't mean that you guys are actually compatible, that love is there, that understanding is there, that affection, the desire, all of those things are cut off. If you actually do lust for your partner physically, like you're like, God, that's sexy as fuck. Like, I want to climb that like a mountain. Nope. You better. That's disgusting. You cannot express like normal human things for the person that you're creating this, even after you have a baby. That baby is just a mere gateway. You've just created a vessel for somebody to come back and continue up their bridge. Well, thank you for making that body, because that person over there just kicked the bucket. Now they can continue up and keep going. It's not a real human life that they look at.
No, and also there's a whole. The other day, Alex sent me a video, and it was a couple of people. It was two Scientologists talking to each other during COVID, and I realized that they're almost. It felt so sickly sweet. They're almost in glee all the time. It's like everything's roses, and they're smiling, and everything's great on it. Fantastic to see you, and you're going up the bridge, and you're on purpose, and there's never any acknowledgement that life isn't actually a bed of roses all of the time. And in Scientology, if you're feeling a bit low, or or you feel like crying, you're not allowed to.
No.
And you're not allowed to have normal human emotions. And it's kind of HENR, as they used to call human emotion and reaction.
And that's what's so wild. It's like, I went to public high school, right? So I had besties all over the place, and I played sports, and I did all this stuff. And so I saw my friends have emotions. I had emotions with my friends, even though I was clear. Okay, big controversial statement there. I had emotions. And then when I joined the Sea organization, I thought people were just people, right? So like, I would express emotions, I would cry, I would have and that got beaten out of me very quickly, because you can't have a cry. You can't have period hormones overwhelm you, and then you're just like, I mean, like, we've all experienced that as people who have periods. Like, your hormones are at a 9 million. You don't know. You could just see a fucking Kleenex commercial on the deli, and now you're a ball. You're just, you're having a cry, right? But you're not allowed to do that in Scientology. You're not allowed to cry. I mean, like, when my father passed, I was 19, and I was a year, like 6 months into being in the Sea Org, and it was devastating to me. Like, absolutely. Like, I was told by my boss, not by my relatives, not by my stepmother who found him, not by my baby sister who wasn't even yet 16. This was 12 days before her 16th birthday. I was told by my boss I was isolated for the whole day until they figured out what they were going to do. My stepmom had been calling all day trying to get a hold of me. And when they told me, I had such a visceral physical reaction that I had to be removed from the building, because it was like guttural screams, like I had a real human reaction to this death. I'm pounding on the walls. They took me around the block, like, I don't know, a couple hours until I could like not be crying. And then they threw me into a counseling session for what's called a loss of a person assist. okay, to run this Scientological process that's supposed to heal you of this sadness, right? Immediately upon learning that my father is dead. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him in my family. And about another 2 hours into this, because I'm just hysterical, I realized, oh, I'm supposed to not be sad anymore. I have to stop be sad, and I have to smile, and I have to make my needle do the floaty floaty, or I'm never leaving this room. So I did
I'm
that.
so sorry. Nora, that's just horrible.
It's awful. And I kept getting in trouble because every few months I would have a complete depression collapse because I was still experiencing this loss of my father, and I would get in trouble every time. Oh, maybe you're not really clear because you can't get over it. Like just all these horrific insults, right? And I went to go be with my family, my dad's family. And 3 days into that, they told me, if you don't come back, we're expelling you, because I was the recruiter at the time. And as you probably know, somebody who's very trained in that, if it's the one cardinal rule, guys, that if you do not have a recruiter on the job inside the org, that org loses all of its statistics, no matter what, for the whole week.
Yeah.
They get counted big goose eggs. No matter how much money they bring in, no matter how many people go clear, no matter how many people finish a course, it's all zeroed out. It's canceled out because you don't have somebody walking around going, join the fake Space Navy today, right?
Yeah.
And so I was under this pressure to either be, I had to go handle my grandmother because my stepmother was so involved in Scientology. She cremated my dad before his own mother got to say goodbye to him. So here I am at 19, going to talk to my grandmother, who is catatonic, trying to handle this woman on like why it's all okay. And my dad is this great spiritual being and everything's fine. You know, like, and she's a Seventh-day Adventist. She's like, you know, I'm talking to all my cousins, my aunts and uncles, my aunt who's like, well, I saw the coroner's report. I don't even know if it was his body. Maybe he faked his, it was like this whole, oh my God. And my dad would have been one of those guys who would have faked his death. I used to think about that for a long time because I never saw his body either. My sister, no living relative of his witnessed him being dead except for my stepmother, and I'll never forgive her for that. But it's just like, these are the things they do, and I had to learn to detach from that emotion. You know what I mean? Like, just to not, and I've had a very complex relationship with it. It's been 30 years this year, 30 years since my father passed. This October be Jesus, God, that's in a couple months. 30 years. And it's wild to me because I've gone through a lot of I mean, you know, he was on the upper levels and he was like, I'm going to come talk to you guys, you know, like, burr, 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 I'm OT and I can communicate. And then Scientologists say stupid stuff, right? Like, I would have people who were on OT7 come up to me like, oh my God, Nora, I just want you to know, like, yesterday I was exterior to the whole universe during session and I saw your father and he just wants you to know that he's so proud of you and he loves you and that everything's okay. And I literally told this woman who's trying to tell me this like super amazing thing that happened to her, you know, and this message from the beyond from my dad. I said, you know what? Next time you see my dad, wherever the fuck you were in the universe, you tell him I said, go fuck yourself. Okay. If he wants to talk to me, he can come talk to me. Okay. I don't want to hear. She was I got so many reports about that shit because I was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. No. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But Scientologists think that's totally normal. It's totally normal to say crazy, wild shit. Like, did anybody ever say anything to you about dead people or anything like that?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, it's like, you know, the thing I cannot stand this drop the body business with no emotion. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But Nev made me laugh because he had two people that had told him that they were Jesus Christ in the past life. So he got them, he made sure that they both got into the same room at the same time. And he said, me, blah, blah, blah. They were Jesus Christ last lifetime. Then he left the room.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. How many people were Marilyn Monroe? How many people were Jesus? How many people were Joan of Arc? It's like nobody was ever just like, yeah, I was a mailroom guy. I was the garbage man. Everyone was an emperor, a fucking general, fucking, you know, nobody was ever just like, I was a librarian. everybody was somebody. It's like, no, you actually weren't. No.
I know. But it is, and the other thing that is bereft, that it just doesn't exist, is love. The concept of love in Scientology, it's really sad. And the fact, that some women, I personally know of 2 people who were forced to have abortions, and I know, years later, it still affects them to this day.
Of course. Because it's not because, and I'm just going to clarify for the audience. It's not because an abortion was had. It's because they were made to do that. It was not their choice. They weren't
that's right.
I want to do this. I don't feel like this is not a good choice for me to be pregnant and give birth. It was, oh, you're pregnant? Here's the Planned Parenthood. You better head down there real quick. Take care of that.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's no discussion. There's no discussion. I mean, like the most famous person, of course, in regards to that is Laura DiCrescenzo, who was made as a teen to have multiple abortions. And she ended up suing the church later. She's the only person I know that in a court case got back all of her folders as part of her court case. They had to give her all of the original, every folder. And they ended up settling with her for, of course, an undisclosed amount, which she deserves every penny of. I don't care how many millions of dollars. I hope she got a lot. I hope she got bajillions of dollars, because there's no amount of money that can make up for that. None. But she's a mom. I haven't spoken to her since the case, which is, not because I don't love her in my heart. And we were on the concentration camp together. But I know that she's moved on from all of this. And I'm sure part of her settlement is like, she can't talk about things.
Yeah. NDA. Yeah.
And that's, and I don't have, that's a controversial statement for me to say. I don't have a problem if somebody, because of the shit that happened to them, gets a settlement, right? I've joked many times, like, my number is 500 million. If they want to give that to me in non-sequential unmarked bills and cash, great. I'll shut this shit off. End of show.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
So
and what I do with that money would be, I would continue to help people. I just wouldn't talk about it publicly. And that's okay with me. That's totally fine. But I do have a gripe with certain people like Debbie Cook, who is an unindicted co-conspirator in many crimes against children, the elderly, and thousands of people across the planet, because it's an international organization, getting a settlement and then just shutting the fuck up. I don't think that's okay. I don't think it's okay that the same thing happened with Marty Rathbun. Like, talk about somebody who knows where the bodies are buried, I mean,
and then he went back.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and then you look at people like, your husband, Neville, who never not told the truth about what he knew and what happened. And he got a lot of shit for that, for sure. And not like, but it's just, this is the hard part, I think, about speaking out, is that oftentimes there is some reward. The first time I questioned saying anything, I got an email, like an anonymous email. This was 10 years ago now, where somebody basically wrote to me and said, I'm so glad that you told your story about being gay in Scientology, because I grew up in Scientology also, and I'm also gay, and I have been like basically hurting myself my whole life. And now I know it's okay. And like, the problem isn't me, it's Scientology. And like, just that was like, okay, this is worth it. It's just for one person to be like, I woke up and got out of Scientology. I took my kids out of Scientology. I got, like, whatever has happened as a result of telling your story. Yeah. That outweighs any monetary compensation, in my opinion. I mean, money's great. Don't get me wrong. We all need money. That's how capitalism is the religion of the whole planet, unfortunately, and so we all need that. But like, as a result of you starting to speak out, what has been happening for you? Are they like, have you had negative repercussions from the church or anything yet?
I mean, to be honest, I don't go looking. If there is anything out there, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Good on you, don't.
No, I'm not interested. And I know that Alex has had a lot of hate stuff on his on this Stand channel, and there is a picture of me on there where they've taken some words that I've said in an interview with him, and then they've sort of edited it to make it sound worse than it was and stuff like that.
Of course.
And then the description the response that they had to my Sun article and stuff like that. It's water for ducks back to me. If they did try something really nasty, I would do my darndest to make sure that they were accountable in some way. They can't win on the internet. And as soon as they do something, it'll be out there. It'll be on the internet within seconds, But I am speaking the truth. It's not just my truth. I am speaking on behalf of a lot of people who have no voice, who are still stuck in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope one day they see the light. I think it's harder for the second, third generation kids who they need a catalyst to help them get out. There's got to be like a light bulb moment, I think, that makes them realize this is a prison I'm in. I don't have to stay here. I don't have to stay here. I was really sickened when Lara and is it Audit LA? They were out doing a protest one day, and there was this a really interested young man who was asking questions, right? Who was, and he genuinely wanted to have some answers to stuff, and was quite happy to communicate with them. And then the security told somebody inside, and this woman comes out and escorts him back into the building, and that really stuck in my throat. It's just so wrong. And he's escorted. She's literally pushing him into the building.
Yeah. Now let's look at the contrast between the eras we were in and right now. Now, if somebody observed somebody like saying weird stuff or negative stuff about Scientology back in the day, they would have been like, maybe you should buy a book. They would have come out with the Dianetics book, like fully been like, listen, all your answers are here. And tell you what, this one's on me. Just take it, go home and read it. It's all good.
Yeah,
if they would find something in here you don't like, you come back and talk to me about it. It would be a total book sale, and they would get the person to make an appointment to come back to discuss their disagreements.
Yeah, and you would be trained in the organization on how to deal with people like that. And how to communicate with them. But you wouldn't do this. You would talk about the benefits that Scientology has been to you and all this sort of stuff. But you wouldn't do the shunning that they do now and the complete no communication, which goes completely about, their slogan about communication as a universal solvent. Well, hang on a minute. Is it really in Scientology anymore?
Well, see, and this is where you see the change. Now, of course, the doctrine, the ridiculousness of that has always been the same, whether it was Lafayette Ronald or David Miscavige. But when you see the change, like as an example, when my mom walked into the San Francisco, org there in 1970, her best friend had a copy of Dianetics. They were in college together, and he had all these books on his bed, and one was Dianetics, and she picked it up, and she was like, "What's this? What's this?" And he goes, "Oh," he takes it right out of her hand. "You don't want that. You don't like that. That's not for you." And she was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, I don't think you want to know about it. I mean, that's what I'm finding out about down at Scientology, but I already tried to talk to you. You said you weren't interested. It's okay. You don't want it. So my mom, being the type of person that like the sarcasm, the pushback, you're not good enough kind of thing, like totally got to her. So she marched herself over to the organization and walked right up to reception and said, "Listen to me very clearly. I don't want any of this Scientology bullshit, but I want a copy of Dianetics right now." And the receptionist was like, "Okay." And then she paid for the Dianetics book and left. Now, if somebody walked in, if somebody walked in now to any organization was like, "I don't want any of this Scientology shit, but I want to read Dianetics," they'd be like, security.
I know,
like, it'd be like that because people express interest in things in weird ways, and they get enticed and shoved into it. But you can only be interested in the one way, which is like, yes, I think Scientology is the greatest thing that's ever happened in the history of the universe. And David Miscavige is a truly magical, wonderful human being who has only done good things and is the greatest humanitarian on planet Earth. I'm sorry, what? What? That doesn't even... David Miscavige is the greatest humanitarian on planet Earth? You're telling me he's a greater humanitarian than Gandhi, than
Yeah.
Mandela, than Martin Luther King Jr., than like hundreds of people. He's the greatest that's ever existed. So they've gotten more and more insular, right? Like back in the 70s, my mom was one of her first jobs was like body routing, and she told me it was like joking in the 70s, right? Every cult was there. So she would have to fight for her corner, like fight off the Hare Krishnas and the other people like, this is my corner, because everybody was out on the streets recruiting, right?
Yeah.
And they can't even barely do that now, because what do they have to offer people? They don't have, they have nothing to offer. And every time they do, they get shut down. Like, it's a cult. It's a cult. They run back. Yeah. They don't even talk to the people that are saying it's a cult. Like, okay, tell me why it's a cult.
Yeah.
What have you heard? Well, that's not true. They don't talk to the people. No. They just turn around and walk away awkwardly. Like, we would have talked to the people. We would have been like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and they're not relatable either. If you see someone wearing a fake Space Navy kind of outfit and everything, why would you want to talk to them anyway? It's weird.
Well, all those uniforms too look like they're from some sort of like sex dungeon vampire club. What is that? What is that aesthetic? Like, that's again, if Lafayette were alive and he saw those uniforms, he'd be like, what is this? Like, even he would have a bone to pick with that. Also, David Miscavige making himself a captain.
Oh, God.
Excuse me, my cameraman is the captain. He's the one where's Pat and Annie? Where are Pat and Annie?
Where are Pat and Annie? Absolutely.
Yeah, right? I know. But I think the real thing that people forget in the history, right? Because you were in these historic parts. I'm going to get to the question. Everyone's like throwing questions and comments out here. I'm going to get to those. But because you were there at the beginning of the fake Space Navy, like right after he's kicked out of Rhodesia/Zimbabwe at the time, and he's starting this, kind of hysterical run away from all governments to try and, do the mission into time, which for those of you guys who don't know, the original job of the fake Space Navy was for L. Ron to be in the middle of the ocean so that he could audit himself and go treasure hunting at sites that he had supposedly recalled the location of lost treasure. It was a literal like, I don't even, not time machine treasure hunt, but it's like him trying to recall where all of his buried millions were from all the times that he was Alexander the Great and other people. Okay. Like, so nuts.
Yeah.
So nuts.
I love it. I love how he thought that he was Cecil Rhodes, right? The founder of Rhodesia at one point, right?
Yeah.
And then he found out that Cecil Rhodes was gay, and suddenly he wasn't Cecil Rhodes anymore.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. Speaking of gay, was it known or not known that Quentin was gay?
It was. It's one of these things where you suspect that he was, but you can't talk about it openly. And he was a sweetheart. I loved him. He was such a sweetheart.
I've never met anyone who has one negative thing to say about Quentin.
He was an absolute darling, and he was just squashed by his father completely, because Mary Sue adored him. She really loved him. And Arthur used to run around. He was just a wild kid on the ship and go around lighting his farts and reading magazines. That's what he did,
But wasn't he like funny. 9 or 10 or something at that time, Arthur? Yeah.
He was.
That sounds like a 10-year-old.
Yeah. But he's got a bit of privilege, so he's not going to get locked up in a chain locker. No. And then Suzette was, really good friends with everybody. She was lovely. Suzette was nice. And Diana was, a lot of men loved Diana, and just physically, were kind of like, oh, she's hot and all this sort of stuff. But Quentin was just a sweetheart. He really was. He was a good auditor, I believe. And sad what happened to him. We just don't know, do we?
Well, I think that his death has been one of Scientological lore and conspiracy theory since it happened.
I
You
know.
know, a lot
But
of
he was
people,
desperately unhappy. He was desperately Can you
yes,
imagine, Yeah.
I can absolutely imagine exactly what he was going
Of
through. I
course.
went through it,
Of course. Yeah, of course.
but it
Yeah.
was like worse because Lafayette Ronald was his pops. So, and he was, you
Yeah,
know, I
so
mean,
added.
and the thing that people forget is that Quentin tried. He became a class 12. He was doing everything that he could to please his father. He just wasn't ever going to not be who he was, no matter what. And it was like he was living proof that Scientology didn't work. He was living proof that, and I think that's why the phrase "a cleared cannibal is a cleared cannibal," that people try to like associate that with people who are gay who are clear. So you can be gay and clear because a cleared cannibal is a cleared cannibal, but you can never go to the upper levels, right?
No.
Because if you do that and you're still gay, you're there's something, either Scientology doesn't work, which of course can't be the answer, or you're just too evil, right? And it's what's sad to me is that however Quentin died, whether it was an unaliving or somebody took him out because he was about to sing like a canary, which is the theory about his father, it's still a tragedy either way, because like you said, he was a beloved person. And you know, Ron DeWolf, aka Junior, I've met with one of his children and his grandchild, Jamie. And his son told me stories of like growing up with Ron DeWolf, with Lafayette Ronald Jr. And it was like the most harrowing. They would just move from place to place. People would come to try and kill him all the time. Or he thought people were, you know, it was either somebody was actually showing up to cause him harm, or he thought that person that just moved into the neighborhood was a spy, and they would just be moved in the middle of the night to another place, you know, even after he's changing his name and stuff. I mean, have you ever watched his testimony before Congress?
No.
I'm gonna be showing that on a later show. It's fascinating because, like the stories you've told, it's like that. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's so matter of fact. It's not that he does it in such a Scientological way, his testimony. Do you know what I mean? Like without the emotion, without the, it's just like, it's like he's writing a knowledge report in front of Congress. I think that's part of why he may have not created the impact that he thought he was going to create. And this is the part where I think a lot of us feel like we don't understand why people aren't more outraged. And people are outraged even when we tell the story plainly, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm pimping it now. That's why this book is important, because it doesn't leave out the emotion. It doesn't leave out the emotional toll that growing up in the way, especially that you grew up, and the environment that I grew up in, does to you. Somebody's asking, is Ron DeWolf the same as Nibs? Is that
I think he is, isn't he?
Yeah, I think Junior was nicknamed Nibs, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
he was. Or was that Arthur?
No. Arthur's not Nibs.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think Junior was Nibs. I think that's correct. Yeah. But R.I.P. to Quentin. Anytime I can mention Quentin in a good sentence, I know that just sends shivers down David Miscavige's spine, because you're never supposed to talk about Quentin. We're not supposed to remember him. We're not supposed to talk about him. Let me pull up these super chats here. Ann Castilla says, please make an ashtray yelling video, possibly with a normal person walking by. It would be hysterical. You know what would be great is if I could go into like some sort of like furniture store and just start
but it
doing
also
that.
Like, you get it to lift up.
Have to be, that would be wild. Rock says, thank you both for this interview. Thank you for being my mod, Rocks, and thank you for the cheddar. Appreciate. Let's go to the comments here and see what they have to say. Steffi says, excited for this. What a revelation. She was so full of data, knowledge, and very intimate notes from her life and experiences. We are all survivors. God bless her and Neville.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
This is random. All of it is definitely that. I don't know what you were talking about there, Steffi, but thank you. I remember Jeff Pomerantz at an IAS fundraising event saying he's done the pier 4 times because of how many flights he took salvaging the planet and the radiation from the flights. No, Jeff, it was because you're a raging alcoholic. Let's be honest. Had nothing to do with flying in an airplane. Are you okay, babe? No, I'm good. I've got my fan. I'm good. Thank you, love. It is warm. It's toasty in the garage, but I have a fan on me.
Yeah, it's hot here. It's hot in England.
I know. I saw that you guys are like melting over there right now. Ugh. As a young teenager, Leanie says, I had so many withholds when the castle was being built. Some great eye candy. If only I knew the reality of the poor workers.
Oh, really?
She was ogling you guys. Well, you know. Sweaty RPFers. So hot. So hot.
You'll have to tell me who she was because I'm dying to know who that is.
She was a young kid over there, probably just watching all those sweaty menses working out, you know, getting all hot. Maybe a shirt came off here or there, you know, because it was hot. What are you going to do?
We were wearing black boiler suits.
Yeah, right. So sexy. My IAS lifetime membership was a gift. I've never been so disappointed, right? Like, can you imagine being a kid at Christmas and you're like, you're a lifetime member of the IAS? Like, I wanted a fucking Switch. What? Gen X Biatch says, I commend both Danielle and Nora for protecting their children when many parents in Scientology did not. It's when you're totally out, it's easy. When you're surrounded by them, it's not. So my hat's also off to people who, you know, are battling their families and are secretly protecting their children from this. But also I say to you, just go live your life. You don't need those people. And if they want to see their grandkids or their nieces or nephews or whatever, they will. And they need to choose. They need to choose real life over this fucked up cult, because the more you allow somebody to continue it, the more they're indoctrinated. And you have to like be that hammer of Thor moment for them, you know?
Tell them, and if you want to leave, I'll come and get you. Just let me know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As John Atack said, auditing is guided imagination. Those dating drills never worked. Your date is 1,236,012 minutes. Horrible. Yes. Meanwhile, I'm thinking of pineapples.
Yeah, there were ways, weren't there, that you could... Yeah. I
would think about the Sistine Chapel a lot if I needed to have my needle do the floaty, because it's one of the most magical places I've ever been. And if I sat down in the classroom and somebody needed to see one, I would just think of that, and it would work every time. Every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Laughing at Scientology together is top tier self-care. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Agreed. New t-shirt merch. Ashtray.
Yeah, it'd be a great cartoon strip. Why isn't it lifting up?
Right? Like, if we're supposed to all have these magic powers, how come none of us could levitate the ashtray? Not one of us. None. It still blows my mind how many fake Space Navy members casually manhandle people. Yeah, especially now. If somebody had tried to manhandle my mom in the 70s or at any point, she would have drop kicked the shit out of that person.
Yeah.
We didn't allow that, but they allow it now. Everyone is completely controlled via words, body, everything.
Yeah. Minibuses with windows blocked out and everything. It's horrendous.
It's wild. Yeah. It's human trafficking in plain sight. It's human trafficking in broad daylight, and no one does anything about it. It's wild to me. Absolutely wild. Stacy says, thank you, Danielle, for sharing your story with us. You are much appreciated.
Thank you, Stacy.
Let me get to the burning questions here. Amy wants to know, was there air conditioning while you were in Florida?
In places. I think the auditorium had air conditioning, but sometimes our room had it, and sometimes we weren't allowed to have it on.
Yeah, because they couldn't pay the bills back then, guys. No. During the period that your mother was removed from hospital and tended by Scientology, what Scientology services were being used to rehabilitate her?
Oh, I can tell you because she couldn't move. Remember? Guess what they were? Touch assists.
Of course. Feel my finger. Or
Yeah,
if your mom was clear, it would have to be look at my finger while you're being touched. Look at my finger. Thank you. Look at my finger.
But
You got to
no,
do it on the
the
same.
very sad thing,
Both
she
sides.
couldn't speak, right? So it would have been,
Jesus.
yeah. It was horrible.
That's
It was truly,
horrific.
really horrible.
Apostate Alex in the house. What's up, Alex? Alex wants to know, did you ever notice at the time that they started making Lafayette Ronald's teeth look better in photos?
No.
Yeah, that was later. That's like the 80s.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
LBS, or I think it's LB slower or LBS lower. I don't know. Anyway, do you think that Lafayette Ronald would be on board with all of the smear videos that they've done for ex-Scientologists? How do you think he would have handled the internet?
That's an interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think he would have minded the smear videos because that's his plan anyway.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it's on the internet or not. But I think he might have been a bit befuddled by the internet.
I think he would have embraced it. I think that he loved weird shit.
Yeah, he would have wanted to learn about it and how he could use it. For him, I think if it was a weapon that he could use against SPs and psychiatry and psychologists, then
Boom.
he would have done it, yeah. Or he would have, well, let's just say he would have got other people to do it for him, yeah.
But let's be honest, he would have pulled an Al Gore and claimed responsibility for creating it.
Yeah.
And it would be the only approved medium for Scientologists to use, of course. And, he would have figured out the secure circular servers and would have had like the Scientology approved internet, not just the emails and stuff that like Earthlink, like it would be it would be his own empire. It'd be like just a private thing that he would have going, and he would totally take. This is ancient technology from planet Xylon that I just got communique from and redeveloped this technology just for us. And if you want internet, it's only $10,000 per year.
Yeah, that's right. How can I make money from this? That would have been the thing.
Oh yeah, it would be a whole other, which I'm surprised. David Miscavige went the opposite way, right? He went when the internet was first making its debut and people were starting to get on. First it was like, no one go on the internet. That is where news is. You cannot go to there. Then they did this whole campaign where they were like, okay, just kidding. We're now going to make, because this was right when a former member of Tom Cruise's entourage leaked OT7 onto the internet. So Xenu was everywhere, and Xenu.net was born and all this stuff, right? So to counter all of these Scientology secrets coming out, David Miscavige's master plan was, we're all going to make a website, except for, of course, the ERG members, right? So they got all the people to come in, and you had to fill out this little thing and upload a picture of yourself saying, I'm a Scientologist, and you give like a little bio of yourself, right? Okay. But on the back end, you're filling out all this personal information. You had to give your social, your date of birth, like everything. Okay. But that's not what's showing on the website, but just in order to create your own personal website. Okay. Then people were so stupid and they didn't understand the internet at all. They gave them a CD and said, now you go home and you upload your website to your computer. Wow. And it was all nanny software so that they could track what all the Scientologists were searching for. So if Scientologists started searching Scientology on the internet, they would get like an alert back at Incom to tell them, uh-oh, Joe's searching Scientology. He's on Xenu.net. Alert. Right. And so they were like trying to track people. And that only lasted a bit because, computers only last a little while. And then people get new computers and stuff. They couldn't just keep giving. People started understanding how the internet worked. So they couldn't just keep giving people CDs, CD-ROM to put in their computer. But like that was their solution, was to just track people to make sure that, number one, they weren't searching for stuff, but number two, that their names weren't coming up in conjunction with Operation Snow White, with all these other things that were now starting to be divulged in this brand new landscape known as the internet. So it's, but I think Lafayette Ronald, with his space jazz and all this other stuff, he would have been he would have been wild about it in a very strange way, and would have tried to claim responsibility for that 100%. Leanie wants to know, Danielle, when you mention Captain Bill, are you referring to Captain Bill Robertson?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
I believe he passed recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a bit more than recently. It was a while back.
Was it a few years back?
Yeah.
Time is irrelevant to me now. I don't really... I just know that school's starting again in like a couple weeks for my kids. That's how I measure time. And then school is over. And then I have like a little break and then school starts again. Oh my God. What would happen if you said, I don't know how to do this. I've never done it in a past life. That would have been a great answer.
Past life, go and learn about it right now.
Yeah. It's still not an excuse not to do it.
No, absolutely no.
No, you'd have to still be like, well, make it go right.
Yep. You've got to stay in present time, remember?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. They would have been like, well, no case on post. Don't tell me about your case.
No. It's irrelevant. I mean, you could have been Mary Queen of Scots in a past life. Or you could have been, Henry VIII and you knew how to chop off heads. But that's just it's not relevant today. Thank you very much.
Right. Oh, man. But that would have been a very sassy answer. That would have gotten you in a lot of trouble. It would have been fun to watch that play out. Do you both feel you recollect more and more as you discuss your experiences? I remember more and more when listening to these invaluable stuff. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, I do. Do you?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then one thing triggers another thing. Oh, and there was this and there was that. And I mean, do you remember me telling you that I stopped my parents? I tried to intervene when my parents were having a fight. They were smacking each other across the face. And I was about, I don't know, 6 or 7 or something. But then later on the ship, there was the captain of the ship was having a fist fight with somebody down in the 'tween decks. And a lovely guy called Alan Voss, who I think was in Scientology till he passed away. He was married to Heidi Voss, a South African guy. He was really sweet, actually. I went to intervene in the fist fight to push them. So the 11, 12-year-old kid, I hated fighting. I hated it with a passion.
Yeah.
And I tried to separate them. And just as I was gonna, I got a glancing blow, but luckily not like full, but a glancing.
Man.
And Alan yanked me out. Oh yeah, they got into big trouble for that.
Oh yeah, well nobody can be punching a small girl in the face, no matter what.
Oh no, but they got into trouble for their fight.
Yeah.
The fact I intervened, I don't know what. Today, if you tried to intervene, maybe you pulled it in. It was your fault. But in those days, it wasn't. It was a little bit more. You could see you were doing the good thing. Because I remember once when I was on the OEC FEBC at Flag, we were on lunch break and one of the girls had an epileptic fit in the foyer of the Harrison Hotel. And I went with her to the hospital and she was allowed to go to hospital. So I was late coming back to course. And initially I was going to get into trouble, but then they had everybody in the classroom stand up and clap and applaud me for having helped her. But I don't think they'd do that today, would they?
No, I mean, I had a student at the Celebrity Center who was an epileptic, and I didn't know that. He started having a grand mal seizure, like his whole face was convulsing, and he was like, he took himself outside the course room, and I followed him out because I was like, what are you doing? You're just wandering outside. Like, you can't do that. And I see him, and he's like falling off the little bench outside. And I'm like, oh my God, he's having a seizure, which I recognize because when I was in junior high, a friend of mine had a seizure. And so like, I learned in that moment to like put him in the recovery pose. So I'm putting him in the recovery pose so that he's not swallowing his tongue, and I'm making sure of all this stuff. And in the middle of the seizure, he's like trying to get out the words, the type of assist that helps him through this. Right? Like the assist. So I start doing the assist, and then the seizure slowly abates because seizures don't continue. They just it's not about him coming to present time, right? And so this happened a couple more times, and then his wife was also in the classroom, and then one day I had a note like waiting for the two of them from the ethics office when they came in, and I said, listen, I don't know what this is about, but you have to go downstairs to talk to the ethics guys. And I came back, and she was just bawling, and I said, what happened? And they're like, she said, he's not allowed to come here anymore. He's not allowed to come to Celebrity Center because he has seizures. And I was like, what? Well, that's not covered in I'm thinking in my mind, there's no policy, and there isn't one. There isn't anywhere that L. Ron writes, if you're an epileptic, you can't do Scientology, right?
No.
And I guess he had like stopped taking his medication because it wasn't, they're not psych meds, right? But they're like borderline, it's medical stuff, who knows, right? A lot of medication starts out as a psychological medication, and then they find out it does something else. Like the very first medicine I ever took for my migraines, because I've been a migraine sufferer my whole life, is called nortriptyline. It's commonly known as Pamelor, which was an antidepressant for years. And, but they found out it didn't really help people with depression, but it does help with migraines and nerve problems, right? So the very first time I went to take this medicine, I was terrified. I thought, this is well over a decade after me leaving Scientology. I've already given birth to my children. Like, I am out.
Yeah.
I've gotten my mother out. Scientology's in the rear view. And I'm thinking, as I'm taking this drug for the first time, like, I'm now, like, my first thought, I'm an illegal PC.
Yeah.
Like it's so ingrained in your DNA. And I was just like, no, Nora, okay, this is to help your migraines. It's going to help your migraines. It's for migraines.
Yeah.
You're not going to become lobotomized. Everything is fine. Millions of people have taken this drug. It's totally fine. But it's like, that's what happened to Tori. They told her you can't take your epilepsy meds, right? Yeah. And then she had so many seizures that she now has permanent short-term memory loss. Right. And so this guy,
your brain. Yeah.
And I was fine. I didn't have a problem with like giving him these assists and helping him. Sometimes it took longer than others, especially after the seizure stopped. He would be very like not with it. And so we would have to go like on a walking, locational kind of thing, like look at that tree, and we're walking around the grounds for like an hour, which was fine with me because I thought this is what this person needs. It obviously had a medical episode, but then to be told like, you can't be a Scientologist, essentially. Like, you can't go anywhere. You can do extension courses. You can go to your home. And his poor wife was like, at that point, they were basically, trying to do the next step, which is, of course, like, well, your husband's probably super PTS. I mean, maybe you don't want to be with him if you want to keep going up the bridge because he's just going to drag you down. And it was just like, that was the first time I observed like Scientology being used to basically tell someone that they were not worthy of being part of the group.
Enough. Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild.
That'll go deep. Yeah.
And what happened to the lady that you saw have the seizure? Was she allowed to
I never saw her after that. So I don't actually know. Yeah. I didn't see her again.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
They were like, thank you for coming. Goodbye.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, they can't ever have, I mean, it's like when you were told no smoking above decks when you're in port. Why? Because it's out PR. We can't have somebody flopping around on the ground like a dying fish. Gross.
That's right.
Gross.
Right. Absolutely.
Get out.
Yeah.
That's why you don't see anybody in wheelchairs. That's why you don't see anybody who's blind or deaf. This is Scientology. Gross. You're not perfect. Out.
Yeah.
Miriam in the house, Scientology up north wants to know, does it happen sometimes in a tough spot that old Scientology mentality takes over, things just having to get done, feelings having to be put aside? Does that still happen to you now?
Yes.
You're not supposed to tell our secrets, Danielle.
That's true. It does. It's so embedded, If you think you spent the majority of your formative years being indoctrinated in that belief system, it's very hard to shake it. And then if you're put in a position of stress where you're not necessarily thinking straight, then you're going to bring in some of the old stuff. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
It's wild. Stacy wants to know on the abortion topic, what do you think Scientology's solution to that dilemma is now that Roe versus Wade, in our country at least, has been reversed? That was the law making abortion legal.
No idea.
They're in a bit of a spot. I don't even want to think about it.
And that's in the States, right?
Yeah, that's in the States. I don't even want to think about the solution. I mean, part of the solution has been in recent years, especially for people who I jokingly refer to as Scientology royalty, who are like from big family names, like big donors. If they are married and they get pregnant, they are just, oh, okay, well, wonderful. Have a great baby. Bye. Like they don't want any drama from those people. Now, if you're from a non-prominent big donor family, or you're just a peon, I don't know at this point. I think that they're trying really hard to not make that a thing, especially with it being illegal now. But yeah, I don't know.
But also, if you're a member of the public, it matters less than if you're in the Sea Org, if you get pregnant, right?
Yeah. No, they don't have any rules about that.
No.
Yeah. No, they never did. They never did. Okay, question about the kids. Arthur, where is he? Is he still alive?
Oh, yeah. We know where he is, somewhere in the States. I think LA, but I'm not 100% sure. But he's an artist.
Okay, but he's not in the Sea Org. Yeah. He's not in the fake space Navy
No,
anymore. No,
he's not in Scientology. No. And Suzette, I've no idea, but they are not in Scientology.
But Diana is. Diana's still in the fake space Navy somewhere.
Yes, she is.
Being old as hell. I don't know.
Yeah.
And Nibs is Arthur. So
no, Nibs is not Arthur.
Right. Nibs is not Quentin. It's somebody. I don't know what happened to Nibs.
Junior.
Oh, Junior's Nibs.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Ron DeWolf is passed. He's dead. What about Hubbard's first kid with Sarah?
Nibs is not Mary Sue's son.
Right.
Nibs is his earlier son.
Okay. With his second wife. Because Mary Sue was his third wife, right?
Yeah.
He had the first wife and she took the kid.
But didn't he have 4 and he said that one of them didn't exist? Or did he have 3 and said one didn't exist?
Well, there's the one that he had right before Mary Sue. That the picture of the boat is edited out. And that's the one where he kidnapped the daughter and told her he was going to kill her if she didn't come back or whatever. That girl has talked out, but she's disappeared. She's like, I don't want anything to do with these crazy nutters. So
there was a situation where there was a lady who came to St. Hill from South Africa, and the daughter was a spitting image of one of the girls, LRH's kids. And Nev went down to the manor and spoke to somebody in the manor and talked to him about this kid. And he said to him, don't discuss it, but you haven't heard the half of it. So there's more. And Alex alluded to that in something not that long ago. There are some other children around.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Come on. That guy was, you saw him coming on to your own mother. So like.
To Nev's mum. Yeah. Nev, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, this guy was not, I'm sure he had kids all over the world. Let's be honest. He probably had a kid in every port.
I know. And the red hair sort of gave it away,
Yeah. That's a dead giveaway. Vernon wants to know, did you know Janice Gillum Grady's mother, and did she get treatment for her cancer?
I didn't know her, but she was a good friend of my husband's, and I understand that she was a lovely, lovely person. Everybody I've ever spoken to said she was a lovely person. I don't know about the treatment for her cancer. You'd have to ask Janice.
Yeah. Sandykins wants to know, do we think that Taylor Swift cares that her name is in the 75th anniversary of Dianetics book? Have you seen this
I have.
garbage?
All I can say, I have. All I can say is I can't speak for her because I don't know.
I don't think she even knows. I think she has no clue that her clout is being used by the person who probably produced half a song for her one time, is listed as one of 10 producers on a song. And to say you produce a Taylor Swift song, that's like, okay, good for you. I mean, she's written hundreds of songs. Which one?
Yeah, and she does tend to support the underdog. I think she'd be horrified if she knew the truth about what was going on.
Oh, yeah.
She probably doesn't have time to watch our videos, but if she were to watch any of them and she knew there was that connotation and link, I think she'd be. I don't think if I were in her shoes, I'd just get it removed as soon as possible.
No, she would never. Knowing her, and like, if you guys ever want to, like, I'm a total Swiftie, full disclosure. I'm sure everybody knows that already. But the movie that was like her mini biography before she went out on the Eras tour and stuff has a great moment in it where Trump is running for the first time and she has to have this very awkward and hard conversation with her father, who is a staunch Republican. And she's basically like, I have to come out against him, Daddy. Like, I have to do it because it's the right thing to do. He is the worst person on planet Earth. And it's like, not only is she putting herself out there and putting her career at risk at the time, because she's from Tennessee, who she doesn't know what's going to happen, but she has to go against her own father, which is, for any young lady, that's a huge moment to say, I'm not going to do what you're telling. I'm my own person. And I think this, yeah. But I think with all the hard work that she put in to get control of her own records and her voice and her songs, I think that she would burn the building down personally if she knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going here to make sure I didn't miss anything important. Once again, Danielle, though, I have to say this has been absolutely fabulous. I love talking to you because your stories are amazing. I agree with everybody here. I think you should absolutely put pen to paper or use the typewriter or however you're, probably not a typewriter. I think a lot of us are like, I don't want to look at a typewriter, just all the mentions of it as children.
Yeah, but thanks for having me, Nora. Seriously, it's, I think the more interviews we do, the better. And if people can't have a voice, and we have to be the voice for them. And we have to be here for them if they want to come out. And it's really, really important that the abuse has got to stop. It has to stop. And as I said before, that, if the Catholic Church can finally be brought to account for all the atrocities that they've perpetrated throughout the years, then there's absolutely no reason why Scientology can't be brought to account and held accountable for their abuses either.
Yeah. I agree.
I think in terms of the doctrine and being a religion or whatever, you want to believe whatever you want to believe, but do not be blindsided and or be blind, should I say. Do not be blind to what the truth is. Find out what the truth is. Research what LRH really was and who he really was. And don't believe the PR bullshit that you're being fed. Because you've been fed so many untruths and lies, and you're living in a bubble.
Yeah.
And this isn't suppressives talking. This is true, real, honest life, And
I would say to the people who are, because there are a lot of under the radar Scientologists out there that are afraid, that are, they're being very secretive. They're trying to stay connected to their families. They're trying to desperately cling on to whatever the good things, their wins. Okay. Which is an argument I get in a lot with people. But I will say to all of them, and what I've said to my mother many times is that every single good sensation, moment, realization that occurred in your time inside Scientology has only one source, and that is you. Nothing that you realized about yourself or changed about your behavior or changed about your life was because of Lafayette Ronald or the person giving you the counseling or David Miscavige. It was because you changed that thing about you. You are the source of everything that's happened in your life. And that is a hard concept because, like we talked about earlier, you can't take credit for yourself. You can't really have a relationship with someone else. You certainly can't have a relationship with yourself. My God.
No.
Right? You're only supposed to be thinking about Lafayette Ronald, David Miscavige, and all of mankind, and how everything that you're doing from the moment you wake till the moment you go to sleep, and even in your dreams, how you're going to improve all those other people. And yourself and your loved ones be damned, because they are a hindrance. They're like the chains Jacob Marley carries around, like you have to slough those off so that you can do this important thing. And when you leave Scientology, the first thing that when you take some time and you do something for yourself, you have to learn to not feel guilty about that. When we do these things that are colloquial called self-care now, like you just go and you get a massage just because you feel like it. That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to take yourself out for a nice meal or an ice cream or go see a movie that you like or go take a walk on a beach or sunbathe, whatever the nice thing is. And that's so hard for all of us, especially us recovering, to even still now when I'm like, ooh, I really want that. But, you got to go through a lot of mental gymnastics. And that's the hard part. You have to really realize that you have to love yourself first.
That's true. And also, it's very virtuous to want to help your fellow man, right?
Of course.
And to help the planet and everything. But please just ask yourself, how many years has Scientology been going? And how much better off is the planet now than it was when it first started?
In the last 75 years, how much better has the planet gotten?
That's right.
How's that peace in the Middle East from the way to happiness going?
That's right. And when you're told the lies that there are millions and millions of supporters, find out the truth. You probably won't find more than 30,000,
I know. That was the first brick in the wall. My mom was getting told she had to donate 20 grand or something ridiculous for some new thing in Israel or somewhere, right? They were like, we need chairs for this new org. It's 20 grand for the chairs. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, then you just ask them, who's the manufacturer of the chairs? And you'll just cut that manufacturer the check for 20 grand. And she was like, why? And I was like, just try it. See what happens. You want to give them 20 grand? Why don't you just go and just maybe broker a better deal for the chairs? And they were like, oh, no, we got it. We already negotiated. And she's like, no, what's the name of the person? I'll just give him the check. And when they wouldn't give her the name of the manufacturer, it got her thinking.
There you go.
So sometimes you got to hit them in the thing that's going to make them think a little bit. Like, why can't I just pay the manufacturer of the chairs for the chairs that you need? That doesn't make no sense. Why do you need it?
That's right.
It's the little weird things,
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that you were able to escape, Danielle, and that your family was out. I'm horrified at what happened to your mother. It was absolutely unnecessary. It's not to say like we can't play devil's advocate and be like, well, if she'd stayed in hospital, everything would have been fine. We have no idea of knowing that. No. If she would have been,
I have had people contact me afterwards. One guy left and he made friends with me, just befriending, and then went back in again. So was obviously feeding information back.
Of course.
And then there was another woman who actually said she was desperate to leave and she wanted to escape. Would I help her? So of course I went to pick her up. She came home and lived with me for a while, but then she went straight back in again. And then just recently I've had a friend request on Facebook from a lady who said,
of course.
Who I don't know, who's said that she's friends with Tom DeVore, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. And she said, oh, I just thought you were nice. And then when I went and looked at her profile, it says he has just recently updated his profile.
Yeah, it's total bullshit.
It's just like, come on, guys, really.
I mean, you're way too smart for that stuff. And it's sad that in today's day and age, they're still trying the same bullshit. Because like what people don't understand about me, there's a lot of rumors. I'm a total cunt. I'm mean. I do all these things. I'm a horrific person. However, I have never turned someone away who's reached out to me and said, hey, here's my scenario. What should I do? I always respond to that and say, well, here's what I would do. And I'm sure. And then I never hear back from a lot of those people. I've tried writing them back. Of course, I get no response. So, and I've never said, the irony for Scientology is like, I've never said anything like, well, I think you should do something really destructive, you know, like I'm always like, it's going to take a long time to get your mom out or your sister out. I'm trying to be real with people. Like it took me a decade. This is not, you're never going to walk up to a Scientologist and be like, get out. And then they just leave and then they just go. And even talking, you've been out now, what, 30 years at least?
At least.
30 years.
81.
Okay. So
82.
40 years.
Yeah. 82.
Like over 44 years you've been out, because 1980 was last decade in my mind. But, you know, I've been out now 23 years physically out. Okay. Since I had my last day in the concentration camp, but it's still there. You know what I mean? Because this is, I think when they say that Scientology is like the most diabolical, this is what they're talking about. It doesn't leave your DNA, right? In that, I haven't met anybody who has somehow exercised every portion of it from their being. There are people that if I saw them in their new life, nobody knew they were Scientologists, they would be like, no, we're not talking about that right now. Right? Because people hide it and they don't, you know, like even Jamie talks about that in his book. Like before he wrote his book, his whole life, nobody knew he grew up in Scientology. That was not his thing. We didn't talk about that. Right? Like he just made this other life for himself. And it was like, you know, only people like me who knew him from back in the day knew.
But they still exist. So they still, to the degree they still exist, we still feel that trauma.
Yeah.
Because we know it's still happening and they're still perpetuating it.
Yeah. And when I see people, you know, like that gentleman I talked to at the Father's Day protest who came right up to me and just turned, you know, at first he thought I wasn't with Dan. And then he realized I was, and then he turned the, you know, where do you live? You know, and started like, you know, and I just turned it around on him because I was like, oh, I could see the physical shift in his body. I stuck out my hand and I said, hi, I'm Nora. And he was like, oh, hi. And then, oh, fuck, I'm touching an SP. Where do you live? You know, like, and he turned it into this whole thing. And then he couldn't get in the building. It was totally locked. He's locked out. And I had to tell this man where to go to get into the building he's trying to get into. You know, and I asked them the question that I think everybody should ask Scientologists. Why does David Miscavige get to squirrel Scientology and violate tech D grades and create his own thing? Why is that okay with you? Because people like us and children who grew up in it like us know that that's the second thing you read on every course pack. And the only way they get rid of that is to get rid of that bulletin altogether. Yeah. Which I'm highly suspecting that they have. I'm highly suspecting that they don't, you know, show that anymore, because how come all this new stuff has come out and how come things are getting reissued and I'd be interested in actually what is your view on you know how is he called Streets LA, goes and stands outside the building and talks to Shannon, right? Hey Shannon, you know. So I wasn't sure how to react to him having a go at the individuals in there, because I don't think what he's doing is going to make any difference to them. I don't think they're going to listen, because that was me once. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I kind of feel their pain from the kind of verbal abuse that's happening to them. And now it's escalating because the members of the public, I mean, in some ways it's amusing, but in other ways I look at them like he's always having a go at this guy about saying church all the time. And I've said this publicly, like, I think that Streets is an effective, what we call here, First Amendment auditor. And by that is meant like his whole thing started, he was protesting the police, right? And so he would just, you know, I mean, you could wait on any block in Hollywood and there's going to be some fucking police action happening at some point, right? Yeah. So he would put himself at the police action, and he knew so many of the cops because he's been watching them for so many years, where he would say, hey, I don't know what you're doing, this kid. Is he under arrest? What's the charges? Like he would start like trying to talk to the police about the specific things. And then when Scientology kind of started like blowing up on TikTok, people were talking about it. He's a content creator, right? So he's like, I'm going to go check this place out. And they started trying to like fuck with him. So of course they did what Scientology does. And they like did a background check on him, and his son had been shot down in gang crossfire. And the police basically chalked it up to his son being a gangbanger who he was not. And that's what started his whole, like, I'm going to fucking watch these police like a hawk because they're not doing their jobs. They're not finding my son's murderer. They're not figuring out what happened. So his first confrontation with Scientologists was like, what the fuck is this? What are you guys doing? And the guard angel was like, well, maybe your son would still be here if he wasn't a gangbanger. That's what they had the gall to say to him. So then he was like, oh, you want some of this smoke? It's on.
Okay.
And so from that point forward, he's been like, go fuck yourself. I don't give a fuck if you're in a cult. You want to come at my dead son? Let's go. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so I get that kind of mentality because I'm also like, I grew up rough in like, you know, and poor and shit. So it was like, if you're going to take on somebody and you're going to like throw something like that out there, you better be ready for what comes at you. So I still firmly believe that the continual bull baiting of Scientologists, of fake Space Navy members is unhelpful because you and I both know if we were Shannon, right, and some rando fucking guy is out there every day screaming, stopping all production in your organization and is calling you out by name.
Yeah, it just reinforces the SP agenda.
It reinforces that, but you're going to the RPF, baby. You're going to the concentration camp. You are the problem. You're going to be declared, right? Yeah. So and not only are you going to be declared, now all of your worst fears are coming true. All of your worst fears are coming true. Like I too take amusement at him taking the shit out of these people, and the fact that he closed down the test center, which I thought was brilliant, by just
and the
telling all the people it's a cult.
The fact the public are not going in is great. I think that is good, and he does stop people going in. It's just I still personally have a kind of like visceral kind of when he has a go at the actual individuals.
I feel that too. I feel like making your presence known there and getting the truth out to the people who are potential indoctrinees, right? Like the random people, and letting them know, hey, I'm a survivor of this, or I'm protesting this because whatever, and giving them factoids, like a little, bullet points about what Scientology does, I think is immensely important. Like putting the truth out there about Scientology, I think, bar none, super important to put it in the public face, because a lot of people aren't Googling Scientology. Okay. Like they don't give a shit about it. They don't care. No. And when people are down and when they are depressed and when they feel unworthy and anything comes along and is like, hey,
at their most vulnerable.
Right. And they're just like, hey, we like you.
Yeah.
And we can help you. People are going to listen because that's human nature. We want to feel that love. We want to feel like there's a solution to us, to our problems. And bonus, we get to help other people. Holy shit, let's do it. Right?
Yeah.
So that impulse is very easily kind of like, just sort of like twisted, right? In people. Because my impulse, of course, was to help people. I thought I was helping everybody. That I was really helping people and I was a part of this amazing movement. So I would fight somebody if they called it a cult or they said L. Ron Hubbard was this, that, or the other thing or whatever. Like there was no question in my mind. I was doing the right thing. I knew that I was doing the right thing. Right. And I had to also, there's times where you have to talk yourself back into that over and over and over and over again. But you still come to the same conclusion that, of course, I'm on the right team. Of course, I'm helping. Of course, I'm, this is more important than my desire to have a baby or my desire to go play tennis or go see my grandparents or whatever other thing that you're thinking of. But I personally think that degrading anybody, right, or speaking to humans in a degrading way is non-productive. You know what I mean? It's like people who make fun of homeless people, who are just like, well, you're fucking disgusting and why don't you shower? And it's not help. You know what I mean? Right. Like that's not helpful. And it's especially destructive, as you pointed out, in Scientology because it reinforces everything that they're told about the outside world, especially these third gen kids who have never had any exposure to anything.
Yeah. And that guy
besides that.
wearing the same shirt, you know, he might not be able to actually afford another one. It's just
Exactly.
a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, but it, you know, then it gets into the whole thing of like, I put my foot in my mouth about that because I came down very harshly about it. And then people were like, well, Streets is the only one that people are paying attention to, and he's created all this stuff and you can't go against him. And it's like, it's not going against him. I think his protests have been effective, but also if he's the goal has to be one or the other. Like if your goal is to protest and prevent people from entering with
That's
the mocking
working.
and other things, that's working. But if you have a goal of helping the people inside there, that's never going to happen with what you're doing. You can't do both like that. If you want to do both, you have to change the verbiage. You have to change the approach. I mean, I think that bridge is burnt with Shannon. I don't think she's going to believe it.
Oh, bless her. Yeah. She's going to,
Bless her.
if she ever comes out, she'll be a TikTok sensation overnight, right?
Oh my God. She's already famous. She's already famous. Yeah, no, but it's, that's my own personal thing on it. I've even like, I feel bad. I regret having gone in front of the Portland org, and I wrote in chalk, you know, in front of the Portland org, and I wrote, you know, child trafficking cult, all over the place in front of their entrances. And people walking by were like, oh shit. And then they didn't know it was a Church of Scientology. So they would look up and go, oh, that's Scientology right there. Oh my God, you know, and they would read that. And it was shocking and things, but I regret that because the people who were, you know, the parishioners and the staff walking in there were extremely upset and and I would still think, oh, I want to talk to you, like, come talk to me. And now I've made myself the most dangerous person on planet Earth. Right? I've made myself evil. I've made myself unapproachable. And then I'm like, wait, come talk to me. I don't understand why you don't want to talk to me. Like,
so you're not upset about what you wrote, because that is true, right?
No, it's true.
I was one of these kids who was child trafficked, but more about the impact that it's having. Yeah. Okay, got it.
I regret. I don't regret saying it out loud or putting it out there because you're right. It is true. What I regret is my approach was like too bulldozery. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to figure out how to put a message out there that Scientologists will read, even if it's secret, like they're looking, but they're not looking kind of a thing. And that will get them to start thinking, because I feel like right now, especially, that's the thing that we need. I don't want to be part of making them insulate more. I want them to start thinking about how they can get out, you know, and I feel like we've been putting pressure for a couple years now. There's been a lot of pressure, a lot of people protesting, a lot of people making noise, a lot of people hullabaloo. And I think that, you know, looking at the numbers strictly, there's not, you know, you would think this is going to cause a wave. People are going to fucking run out of those buildings. None of that has happened. That's why I think people like you coming forward, telling the truth about Lafayette Ronald from firsthand experience, and more people feeling emboldened to tell the whole truth, not just the acceptable truths, not just the fluff on the top, right? But to tell like Jamie did in his book, and like other people have in their books. Like I have here Catherine Spolino's book, The Bad Cadet, and things like that. Our stories, the stories of the kids born in, are so grotesque, and so, there's no embellishment needed. Just telling what happened is so beyond awful, and that's still happening now. That's the part, in my personal opinion, that we need to keep emphasizing, is just the truth. We don't have to come at it at these weird angles, but I could be totally wrong. I could be, you know, Laura's in the chat. My buddy Laura. Now people get all twisted when people have different opinions, and it's okay. We're still friends. Laura says, she says, I disagree. I think everybody has protested in their own ways, and everybody has collectively made a big change because everybody protesting in their own way. I don't disagree with that. I think it has created an impact. She says, and it's good to trigger sometimes in the Sea Org members or ex-Scientologists for them to be aware that they literally are wearing the same shoes or pants for years. Yes, like those kind of things. But see, Laura, pointing out to them like, hey, When was the last time you got a new pair of shoes? You know, like why should you be made to wear the same shoes for 5 years? That's crazy, right? Versus, wow, your shoes are disgusting. I'm not saying Laura ever said anything like that, because of course she didn't. But, you know, like mocking them versus
it's how it's communicated. Yeah,
exactly. Because I think
yeah,
pointing out the outpoints that make people think, that's
yeah.
the way that we start getting them to break the spell, you know,
Yeah.
because they have to start,
Like,
you know,
when were
like
you last able to spend Christmas with your family, or
sure.
you know, when were you last able to attend a wedding of your family, or just the things that matter to human beings, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. Because like for you, it was like, I don't want to do this again. I'm not going to go
No,
through this torture again.
no.
Right. And sometimes that's people's breaking points, you know, like they're just like, I can't, there's
Do this
clearly,
anymore.
this isn't for me, you know? But for a lot of the kids, it's like, you know, Leanie says it has to be real. A family member emailed me about Xenu. I printed it, took it to the ethics office, and said, I think they're on drugs.
Self-policing.
But that is so like a Scientology reaction. Like, this person is crazy. Elron would never write about someone called Xenu. The first time I saw Xenu, I thought it was Xenu. Because it was right after like my big fat Greek wedding came out.
Yeah.
And he's like the Xenu toast family. So I was like, oh, Xenu, are they Greek? What's happening?
I thought it was Xanadu.
Oh, like Xanadu, yes. Now that's a fun movie. If that's what we're auditing out, I don't want to be a part of it. Like, come on, let's all get the glittery leg warmers on and Olivia Newton-John it up. Come on now. Laura says, not everybody's doing that, and not the people that are doing it don't do that every time. It's a different scenario. No, I know.
Yeah, that's
Laura,
true.
I totally know. It's like you have to, unfortunately, there's not a universal message that would break through to people. Because even if we came out with a poster that showed Lafayette Ronald's real military record as an example, right? And we just put that out there, that he wasn't this war hero, most people would be like, I don't care. I don't care. You know, it's just not like, I mean, to me, I'm like, holy shit, you know, that got me. Like, he was in the
everybody, you know, we used to talk about buttons. Everybody else is going to have a different button, right? That's going to push them over the edge. Yes. It's going to be something different.
Yes, Laura, we're all in agreement here. It does get them to think a little bit, even if it's negative or bad about themselves. It's the first step to getting them thinking for themselves, actually, not like a Borg or a Scientologist. Yeah, agreed. And it's important to, that's why, I don't know if you've seen the video, but one time a Scientologist actually had like a full 5-minute conversation with Laura about just some of the rules, like disconnection and things like that. And this lady was like sincerely talking to Laura until a security officer came and pulled this woman away. And even Laura in that moment was like, why are you being pulled away? We're having a pleasant conversation. How come you're not being allowed to talk to me? I hope that portion of the conversation is what that lady took away. That I'm being pulled away from this young woman who is engaging with me there was no yelling, there was no nothing, there was no like, Laura wasn't fighting her, she wasn't yelling at her, nothing. It was a perfect conversation, and this woman's being pulled into the building because they're watching all of our live streams, and they're watching Laura like talk to her about disconnection, and she's like, well, that's not okay. As soon as she was like, that's not okay, somebody came out and got her. You know, so I think it's still an uphill battle. And that's why I know Audit was in the chat earlier, but that's why I appreciate like what Audit's doing at the legal city level, especially against Big Blue, and what Alex is doing over there at the, you know, the council level in England, because that's the way you shut them down, because what they're doing is illegal. What they're doing is not correct. Like, Audit is pointing out to a very specific committee that like there's a rule in Los Angeles, but also in California, that if you have a private property and you say to the city of Los Angeles, I don't want the street sweepers to come. We're going to maintain the street. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
You have to pay that person who's maintaining the street what the city of Los Angeles would be paying a contractor or whomever to do it. So audit was correctly pointing out to them that these people are getting paid pennies on the hour. They're not being paid that wage. And that is a violation of them having this agreement with, and so it's these little tiny things. They seem stupid. Like, okay, it's a gardener. Who cares? Actually, the law cares. The law cares. And you have to find these tiny loopholes, especially in the labor laws and things, to get them shut down because they're violating everything. I mean, you and I know that from like the amount of hours we worked and what we got paid.
Yeah, absolutely. What the amount of hours we never got paid for.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd love to see, wouldn't it be great if we could get some I don't know if it's law enforcement or health and safety or somebody to just go in, carte blanche, and say all the staff meet here in the auditorium. Anybody who wants to leave with me, come now, It'd be very
Listen, as much
interesting.
as I hate ICE in this country, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement guys, I secretly hope that they raid all of the buildings, line everybody up, demand to see all their passports and their R1 visas that you and I both know are fully expired, and they send people back to the countries of origin, because at least then they'd be forced to seek their family out. And their family, in the most part, would probably be like, thank God we haven't heard from you in years. And that's the part that I think they don't understand, is they think my family doesn't care. I broke their heart. They don't want me. There's very few families out there for the under the radar foreigners who are thinking, I can't ever go back to wherever because my family hasn't heard from me in a decade. They want you back. They have been looking for you. They have been waiting for you. Go back. Because I honestly hope that those people are freed, at least from that type of human trafficking that Scientology still engages in daily. Because people are getting hunted down in the middle of farm fields here, that are working. They're working.
Oh, they are here too. Yeah.
Are you guys doing that? Is that happening right now as well in England?
It did happen. It's less so now, but it did. But then when we had Brexit and we left the European Union, then we suffered. The farms suffered because the majority of the workers on the farms were from places like Poland or Romania.
Right.
And then everybody got sent back to their countries. And now the teenagers here, they don't want to work on farms.
It's weird. It's like the same thing here. All the people who voted for Trumpity Dump are like, hey, my workers are gone. And the young people here in these towns, they don't want to work really hard labor to pick crops.
Exactly.
It's so strange. It's like you threw away your entire workforce and then you're like, oh, no. I mean, honestly, my personal opinion is if you voted for that, I don't think you get to go to any country. I don't think you get to go. I think your passport is canceled. Okay. You don't want any good. You get to stay here and have your fucking potatoes and milk. And that's it. No more Taco Tuesdays for you. No more fucking no food. No. You can have burgers and French fries and fucking cow milk for the rest of that's your diet now. That's it. Don't
the ones that did come down hard on. Yeah, the ones that did come down hard on were the ones, because we have a minimum wage over here that is expected to be paid to workers, and some people working on the farm for the unscrupulous owners who were paying less than minimum wage. Then those are the ones they also came down hard on.
Of course, yeah, it's the same thing here. Migrant workers here, who, by the way, have been here legally on a migrant visa for decades anyway, because they come in, they work, and then they leave. It's a magic. It's like an agreement that they have with the people anyway. They were getting paid beyond slave wages. It's been horrific since its inception. And so the only good I think that can come of this is that, number one, that migrant farm workers start getting fucking appreciated for all the work they do, and they get paid a living wage, and that we fix the system so that it's not criminalized to work, because I think that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, is criminalizing people who are working. You know, the propaganda that gets put around, and I'm sure it's the same during Brexit, is that all these people just sit on welfare. They're getting all of this health care. They're just sucking up all this free money. And it's like, I have never met more hardworking families in my entire life than people whose parents are migrant workers. Okay. Those are people who are up well before the sun comes up, and they keep working after the sun goes down, and they're, you know, sending half their money back to the country that they came from to support a family there and the family they have here. So like, I can't stand that kind of stuff. And I'm sure it's the same for the European migrants who were, you know, trying, because they can make, even with the slave wages they were getting in England, still more money than they could make over in Poland.
100%. Yeah.
You know,
that's right. That's right.
It's wild. It's just wild to me that humanity seems to keep on this insane cycle, which is then perpetuated by people like Lafayette Ronald, who was an enormous racist and misogynist. Like, you know, like, we know that. Like, you heard it. You heard those things in person. But like, listening, if you have to listen to this man on tape at any point in your life, you will know. He does not, he thinks very little, especially of anyone from Africa, any nation, pick one. They're all bad. The Asian, he just thinks that they're human calculators and like memorization people. Not that they're smart, not that they invented math and shit and stuff like that. You know, nope. Doesn't even really mention the Persians, other than they were violent. You know, the Spaniards and things like that. They're greedy. Doesn't like them either. They're greedy.
It's all his own inadequacies coming up, you know.
And he just doesn't. He's from that era where it was like people were judged by the color of their skin, and their brains were supposedly different, and all this science that wasn't science, you know, that was just facts. It's wild to me, and then it gets perpetuated and thrown out as a religious experience to have those completely wrong ideas about groups of people.
Yeah. And also, you know, with their creed, you know how they talk about all men have inalienable rights, and that includes their religion, right? Okay. But I remember some guy getting into trouble because he was wanting to pray on his mat, you know, because he was a Muslim. And it's just like, really, guys, come on. Yeah.
Nope, can't. That's another practice. Yeah, and let's be real, the only religion that gets a pass on that is Judaism. Scientology loves Jewish people.
Oh, okay.
They love the Jews. They're like, oh, you want to do Hanukkah? Okay. Like, we had a whole thing where people wanted off, you know, for Hanukkah and Christmas. So we were like, listen up, Jews and Christians. You guys have to cover for each other for your holidays, okay? So the Jews have got to come in on Christmas and Christmas Eve to cover for the Christians, and the Christians have to be here double time for Hanukkah. All right, that's it. We're going to get this. We're going to keep the stats up. It was like this thing, and we thought it was hilarious, and it's so fucking like xenophobic and shit. Like, it's just like,
it's crazy, isn't it?
It's so insane. Wow. But they were like, yeah. Like,
I don't remember that happening, so it must be a new thing.
This was like in the 90s when we were like, we were wild. We were just out of control. And now we have the Nation of Islam using Lafayette Ronald's tech. They have to do like the student hat and something else before they can become like a full Nation of Islam member. Like, it's nuts. Wow. Who would have thought that David Miscavige would be so desperate for money that he would team up with the Nation of Islam?
Wow.
They're the only black people in Scientology, let's be honest. Like,
wow.
Totally nuts. All right, well, we're going to do this, guys. We're going to do this again because Danielle and I can talk probably for 10 million years. I did forget one thing. My mods are yelling at me in our members chat. Let me pull up. Marla has been here for 5 months as a member. Thank you so much. Okay, I didn't want to forget that. Let's see here. Make sure I didn't forget anything else. I think one other question came in. Laura says she's so confused now. Scientology can't scare two ladies who survives the RPF's RPF What would they do? Cut off your electric bill?
Oh, well, they did that. They did do that.
We've survived it.
Yeah, we did.
Like, I know at this point, like, people are like, aren't you scared? I'm like, what could they possibly do? What thing, what's coming for me that hasn't happened already? What are you going to do? What?
That's exactly what I've said. What can they do to me that they haven't already done? I've already been incarcerated. I've been sexually abused. I've been locked up. You know what? I've been child trafficked. I mean, come on, you know.
What do you got? What's the new thing? I don't know. I mean, like, the only thing that they could do would be to try to harm someone in my life, and that would be a big mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they also have to remember that they created us. Like, these are the things they forget. We know the stuff because we were the good students. We listened and we learned. And so when you try this bullshit, we're like, we know, I could tell you what volume that's from. Are you serious right now? Like, this is child's play. Come up with something better, you know? And that's why it's also important for you and anyone else out there to tell their story. I just want to bring up real quick before we go. Let's put it up here. If you have a story you want to share, I'm going to put this interview up there later. Here we go. I started this blog, Scientology Casualties, okay, because here, I'm such a word clearer. I have to keep doing it. That's going to be fodder for somebody else later. A casualty is a person or thing badly affected by an event or situation. This is the place, this blog right here is the place for all Scientology casualties to share their truth about what happened to them. So if you want to tell all part of your story, some of it, you can write to me anonymously. And I will put it up there, whatever. Or if you want to write it in your name, that's totally fine. You know, let me know because for those of you guys who don't know, Teen Mania, this is why I say, go, if you have a chance, Danielle, watch Shiny Happy People Season 2.
Oh, yeah.
So Teen Mania was like the Christian youth movement. And watching this, I was like, oh my God, this is like giving me flashbacks because everything was child slave labor. And the parents were like paying for these kids to do this internship, right? And they're setting off pyrotechnics. They're putting on these concerts. They're going around the world proselytizing, all this stuff, right? And I'm like, this is sounding very familiar to me. And of course, the man at the top's getting all the money and it's very abusive and people are getting ill and they're not handling their prayer, all this stuff. So a woman who had left, you know, ex-member, she'd been shoved away for some, you know, transgression. She started a blog where she started sharing stories and other members started sharing stories. And as a result, that entity went bankrupt and people are getting, you know, justice. So I'm like, okay, let's do that. Let's just put it, let's go old school. Let's just put our stories there. And this isn't about, you know, a trauma off, right? Everybody's story is valid. That's another thing that we do.
That's why I'm calling mine the story seed. You know, that's what I want to do too. I want to tell people stories. And it won't just be Scientology stories. It's also going to be other survivors' stories. But it's important that it's out there. Yeah.
Yes. We need to do that because as survivors, we need to embrace the trauma. And be okay with how healing looks because it's not linear, it's not simple, it's not quick.
No,
it takes. You know, I'm still in the middle of it. I go to therapy every week, and I've got the shots that Jamie had spoken about, which have been a tremendous help to my nervous system. But you know, talking about this stuff can be fun, like you and I have had today, and sometimes, you know. I'll finish up something like this and then I got to go lay down. I have to have a lie down.
Yeah. It's true.
You know,
it's true.
It's a lot. It's a lot. You know, my kids are like, why do you keep talking about it? I'm like, because it's still happening. Yeah. If it weren't happening, I'd shut the fuck up about it. I'd be done.
Yeah. I think I would. Yeah. But I think we've got to be here for the people who need us.
Yeah. Yeah. There's still way too many people who need us. For sure.
And also preventing people from joining it.
Yes.
As well.
Yes. And if you are stuck in there, please contact the Aftermath or the SPTV Foundation. They both have, you know, donors who are willing and people willing to help you. You know, there are resources. We didn't have that certainly when we left. There was nobody. Or you can contact us. Is there like do you have like an email or anything, Danielle, where people can are you doing that yet? Or I'm not putting you on the spot.
I don't need my email. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. What's the best way if people want to contact you?
So it's my name, Danielle, DANIELLE, and then F for Foxtrot, E for Echo, Lafitte, LA, F for Foxtrot, ITTE, which is my maiden name. My father's name is Jean Lafitte.
So it's your first name and then LA.
No, Danielle, FE, Foxtrot,
Okay.
Echo, Lafitte. FE stands for Françoise Emmanuel, which are my French names, Danielle, Françoise, Emmanuel, Lafitte. So it's Danielle, FE, Lafitte @gmail.com.
And how do I spell Lafitte?
LAFITTE, like the wine.
At Gmail?
Yeah, gmail.com.
Okay, I'm writing that down. I'm giving it to my mods here. There we go. I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, if you guys want to talk to Danielle and, reach out and, that's what we're here. That's what we're here for, is for people to have those combos and things like that. It's important, to keep doing that. Last words from you, Danielle. What do you want to say here at the end?
I think we've said it already, but really, anybody who wants our help, please reach out or to the Micro and Aftermath Foundation, I hope that what I've told you is helpful in terms of being able to warn people off joining. And also, it's important to get our stories told so that people understand just how dangerous a cult this is. Yeah. It's not a religion, it is a cult. And we should be allowed to have the freedom to say that without fear of retribution from the miscaviges of the world,
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't say anything better than that, Danielle. Thank you so much for coming back for part 2 and having this combo.
All hail freedom. That's what I say.
Yeah, 100%. We'll probably get together again. I mean, even if we're not on the interwebs here, because it's amazing, and we've got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to get done to make all of this happen internationally, because this isn't just one thing. Absolutely. It's many things. And I thank all of you guys for tuning in. Thank you to my mods. Thank you to the members. Thank you for those super chats. That's super generous, guys. And I will see you all on the Flippity Dippity.